Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Shut Your Mouth Lounge podcast. Today we have myself, Alex, as usual, Addy the Hero.
Hello?
He specifically waits every fucking time until I start talking so that we both talk at the same time. It's incredible. We've all got this fear of stepping on each other's toes, so we give it like 5 seconds to start talking, and then we all start talking at the same time. It happens every time.
That's exactly how it goes.
Exactly, every time. But yeah, Pink's here also, of course. You can hear him. And also, he's going to have his icon on the screen, so it's not really a surprise.
But you should leave it off just to confuse them all.
Nah.
What a swerve.
But,
The ghost of Sparkle Past is here.
well, we have had at least one episode where Pink wasn't there for the first half or so, and then he showed up. So the icon was the ghost of Sparkle Future.
Yeah. Then we also had last episode when I came in like fucking 2/3 in.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've actually managed to have a pretty consistent cast for the last couple episodes. Compared to the old days of the podcast when it would be all kinds of chaos, and generally you were only assured to have me or possibly Mike. Like that, this is surprising. Also, hang on, I should raise my levels a bit, or at least lower your guys, because when I was in editing, you guys were way louder. So hopefully we'll be able to fix that.
Well, the problem with that is that I'm basically just yell speaking now because that's what doing YouTube for 5 years does to you.
No,
Just as yell, so you just have to yell all the time.
Yeah.
I just had fucked up the levels. That was all. Alright, we've got a couple topics to hit today, but not a whole lot because it's been a slow-ass news week. Let's see. We can talk about the new Golden PS Plus lineup, which there's only so much we can talk about that. But the new Gold lineup, that is Assassin's Creed Syndicate and another dumbass Pixar game, right?
Well, it's The Witness and Assassin's Creed Syndicate for Xbox One and Cars 2, and I don't even freaking know what the other game is. Let me look it up.
It was something terribly irrelevant. I know that. The Witness
They
is...
did another Pixar one?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd have to wonder if Disney set up a deal or Disney is just offering the games for cheap.
Yeah.
But
Disney were throwing the games at Xbox for free. The only explanation.
Probably, yeah. The Witness I've heard a bit about, I want to say, but I don't actually know what it's about.
It's a puzzle game where, well, it's an open world puzzle game.
Oh,
And that sounds interesting, but then you actually play the game, and if you don't like puzzle games like me, then you get bored of it in.
well, why would you say it's interesting if it's a puzzle game and you don't like puzzle games?
I mean, you know, I'm open to concepts that I don't no, bloody hell. I'm open to concepts of things that I don't necessarily like that are interesting. Like, you know, what's the closest thing to it? Well, you know, I don't like Zelda that much, but then I can still say that Link to the Past is pretty good. Not because I like Link to the Past, but I can see why it's good.
Right, but you don't like it. Okay, whatever. I can never fucking understand you. You're working on a whole other world of alien logic.
There's a reason why I freaking was the Riddler for a while on the forums, so...
Oh, please, God, can we not refer to those old things?
Yeah.
Jesus.
But anyway...
That's some high-quality cringe there. Or low-quality, rather. Let's see.
I mean, which is better? Or which is worse? When it comes to cringe, you know.
Yeah, there's definitely an argument and points to be made there. We also are getting Assassin's Creed Syndicate, as mentioned, and I'm hyped for that because perhaps I shouldn't be hyped for it because, like, it's supposed to be the definition of a mediocre, bland Assassin's Creed game.
I bought the game, I pre-ordered the game. It was the game I pre-ordered. So, I have been playing the game for however long it's been out, I actually forgot. I think it's a 2014 game, I want to say. No, it's a 2016 game because they took a 2-year break. Yeah. So, I've been playing it for like 4 years now, I guess.
They took a 2-year break. Didn't Assassin's Creed Origins release in 2017? No, it came out this year, didn't it?
I think it came out this year, but I'm not sure.
I don't know. I haven't been paying attention. I haven't given a shit about
Well-
the Assassin's Creed series for a while because the settings they've been going with haven't interested me. And Syndicate was the...
That's why I'm thinking of getting out of it, actually, because the setting and the gameplay doesn't really interest me anymore. Not because, I'm burnt out of the Assassin's Creed gameplay, but because I don't want to play Witcher with a hood.
I don't know anything about Origins, so I can't talk about that, but Syndicate, Syndicate's really the only one of the recent Assassin's Creed that... Oh, Jesus. Okay, I'm burping real bad here. Anyways, Syndicate is the only Assassin's Creed that's come out within the last fucking 5 years I've been much interested in, because I do like the 1800s era London setting, the Victorian London setting. So I'm interested to see that. On the other hand, I get that I can see where everybody would say that it's the most bland and mediocre Assassin's Creed game, because it was definitely the game where they decided that shit was going bad and they needed to fix it with Origins. They needed to go differently. And also it does...
Yeah, go ahead.
Also, it doesn't have multiplayer, which, I mean, I didn't like Unity, but the co-op multiplayer would be useful just for us. And also, I fucking love the old Brotherhood style of multiplayer, which they fucking got rid of because people are idiots and they can't properly play it.
I looked up the fourth game that is free on Xbox. It's Dead Space 2.
Dead Space 2... Oh, that's actually a really good one for us to play multiplayer, I think. If the servers are still online, which they probably aren't. But still...
We'll need to check.
Yeah, I doubt it, because EA is one of the most adamant of, shutting down the servers after only a year or two. We'll have to check. But Dead Space 2 is a good fucking game. Unfortunately, I already have it, so I can't... I don't benefit here. But you guys... Well... It is a horror game, so if you're not into horror games, then by all means, but I think you guys should try it.
I've tried Dead Space 3, I think.
Oh, okay. So you started with the
sure.
worst. You started with the worst.
I'm not sure which one is in EA Pass thing, because I got a month of EA Pass from a random, and that's a complicated story.
Okay. Were you shooting Were you shooting at monsters or people?
I don't think I got that far.
Were you on a planet or were you in a ship?
I was in a ship.
It's difficult for me to say here because I have so little memory of what Dead Space 3 starts off in. Is the first weapon a pistol or is it a line cutter?
I think it was a pistol.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
It was Dead Space 3 because the first two Dead Spaces didn't have a pistol at all in the first place.
Okay, yeah. So I tried that because people say how good Dead Space is, and then I was like, this seems actually.
Dead Space 3. Dead Space 3 is hot garbage. Or, well, it's probably not hot garbage. It's got its fans, but Dead Space 3 is Dead Space 1 and 2, to begin with, were pretty action-heavy for horror games, but not too bad. Dead Space 1 had very little action going on. Dead Space 1, it wasn't slow burn horror at all. It had parts where it was kind of slow burn, more intelligent horror. The Dead Space series has always suffered from focusing a little too much on jump scares and not enough on actually, building up tension and so on, but Dead Space 1 was definitely the best about actually doing that. Dead Space 2 was a lot more action-heavy than Dead Space 1, but on the bright side, it introduced a lot of innovations that made combat more fun than Dead Space 2. So I'd say that Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2 are both equally valid and fun games. And I'd say Dead Space 2 is among my favorites. Dead Space 3 I have no interest in, and I've seen the clips, and it's very much a bastardization of what the first two Dead Space games were, because it's just a military shooter. Because it was 2011, 2012? And that was when Call of Duty
no.
and Battlefield were really at their height, when Call of Duty and Battlefield were really the dominating parts of the industry, and everyone in the industry was trying to become Call of Duty or Battlefield. And thank fucking God that era is over, you know?
Yeah. Now we're in the era of Ubisoft hate. Some of it is justified, some of it is not.
I'd say most of it's justified. Because, firstly, because Ubisoft has bad business practices, and secondly, because all Ubisoft games are getting to be disturbingly similar in terms of being free roam games with just generic garbage side missions, a main plot that always ends in roughly the same twist as you'd expect, and, you gotta climb the towers to unlock the map or whatever. It's always some nonsense.
The towers are removed now, but the rest still apply. Like well, this is kind of going to another topic, but I tried out Ghost Recon Wildlands because it has a free trial on Xbox and we can actually play together. So I haven't used it up. It's like a 5-hour trial.
A 5-hour trial? I don't know how much fun we can actually have with that.
Me neither, but it's a thing. So I was like, I'll leave it at that and then figure out if we want to play together. But then, yeah, from what I did play, I played the trial of Watch Dogs 2 before it because I'm thinking about buying Watch Dogs 2. And the two games, it's like, aside from some control fluidity, and by fluidity I mean, how it feels to actually control the character, there's not much different aside from from my sense not having parkour.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a thing with Ubisoft where the only difference is Assassin's Creed is usually set in the past, Far Cry is first person, and Watch Dogs has a goofy hacking mechanic. Ghost Recon Wildlands, I have not heard anything about it that differentiates it from other Ubisoft free roam games. It sounds like it's just third person Far Cry without any of the stuff that makes Far Cry interesting. Which
I don't know, because the only Far Cry game that I've played is the first one, so
it's you played the Far Cry that got fucking weird for the second half and introduced like Resident Evil monsters and shit.
well, I didn't get that far, but yeah.
Yeah, that one's kind of a goofy one in Far Cry history. But yeah, Ubisoft, I'm not a fan of them. I'd much rather play anything else. I wouldn't have bought Far Cry 5 if Soon hadn't told me to. So you're not going to see me like trying to defend them. But
The only reason that I say that I'm a fan is because everything that I love is owned by them, really. Because anything that I've loved or anything that I love is Ubisoft. Because Heroes was bought out by Ubisoft, because Assassin's Creed is Ubisoft, and because sometimes they make interesting games. Sometimes,
yeah. But
yeah.
Syndicate, I'd be interested in playing to some degree. I mean, like, with Assassin's Creed, I played Brotherhood way back in the day, and that was about, it was kind of that thing where it's like, okay, this is the extent of Assassin's Creed I can have fun with. Assassin's Creed 3, I played a while because I was interested in the story, and I just kind of dropped off. But Assassin's Creed, it's there. I'm not much for the, like, I rag on Brian for being so firmly against mainstream games, but the most mainstreamist of games nowadays, outside of Overwatch, I've not got a spectacular amount of interest in. You're never going to see me playing Call of Duty or Battlefield or Assassin's Creed nowadays. So, I don't know. And I mean, the times are changing, Battlefield's probably going to fall sooner or later. Battlefield 1 was apparently, like, it was a big mess. I mean, it was supposed to be a great game, but it didn't sell well. And who knows how well the other Battlefields are going to do. Call of Duty is still existing. It's steadily declining, where every game is selling worse than the last at this point, I want to say. This most recent one was definitely like a big failure. And, of course, Black Ops 4 is hilarious because they forgot how Roman numerals work. I don't know if either of you guys saw that, but
I did.
Yeah, the logo is 4 eyes, which is not how Roman numerals work. Not at all.
I'm looking forward to Call of Duty Black Ops 150.
Yeah.
Imagine that logo.
They oh, okay. It took me a second to figure out the joke you were going for, because I'm used to you making stupid meme jokes, and that was an actual good joke. But yeah, I could see it. I could definitely see it. They'd make a border around the logo. They'd make a border around the Call of Duty name and Black Ops name out of the eyes.
That wouldn't actually be a military person on the front. It would just be eyes, like in the shape of a guy.
That would be
Just
such
eyes.
that would be such stupid bullshit that I'd buy it. I'd totally buy it. Once you get to a certain level of nonsense, I'm on board. And that's my level of nonsense. But, and other than that, what they got, yeah, Witness I'll have to look into, because it might be interesting, might be not, I don't know. I can't speak because Addy here, Addy didn't like it, but Addy's also a huge weirdo. Cars, obviously I'm not touching. Dead Space 2 I already own, so for me this isn't too big. Pink, what do you feel about these?
Well, man, cars, that's like a must-have, you know?
Oh yeah, oh my god, I think when I was a little kid I had that game on the Wii. That's
By the way, people say that Cars 2 is like Mario Kart, so keep that in mind.
What, like if Mario Party's bizarre attempted abortion of a fucking half son? Like,
You
no,
cut out. Yeah.
that's good because I made an abortion joke anyway, so it's probably good that cut out. Oh wait, I'm recording, so the abortion joke is totally in there. All right, the audience gets to listen to it. But yeah, I just said the game's probably dog shit, and calling it equivalent to Mario Kart is an insult to Mario Kart.
Yeah.
An unjust insult to Mario Kart. So
Even the worst Mario Kart would have to do better than whatever Pixar put out.
yeah, and also I'd imagine that a Cars game wouldn't have pickups. They don't have hands.
There's probably pickups. Like you go over like a logo, and then your car just goes ka-chow, and then you go faster.
Oh, boosting is pretty much in every racing game that isn't trying to be realistic. Even GTA races have boost pads. Which we have still got. I got to pick up GTA 5 sometime so that we can actually play GTA 5 together on Xbox One.
You'll also need to pick up Unity because GTA 5 might need me to delete like even more of my library.
Well, I'll try to get out and check today or tomorrow. I also should probably check digital to see how the digital prices are. But we'll handle
I
that.
saw it for $15 on Amazon, so
I can find a better deal than that at GameStop or somewheres.
probably.
But
Yeah, I got mine for like 12.
yeah, we'll deal with that after the recording is done. So that's about it. Look, so I assume Pink, like you got nothing to say about Assassin's Creed Syndicate or Dead Space 2?
I'm not a big fan of the Assassin's Creed games. I usually play through like the first couple of missions and then just stop. The Witness I've never heard of, and open world puzzle game just kind of frightens me, so I probably won't be looking into that. And Dead Space 2 is a horror game, which I don't usually play. I might look into it, I might not.
I mean, Dead Space 2 is kind of an oddball in terms of, like, it's so reliant on jump scares that eventually you get used to the jump scares and they don't affect you anymore. And Dead Space 2 is very much one of the, like, Dead Space 2 is kind of weird because it's the kind of game that we don't get anymore. In terms of a lot of the fun is messing around with the gore system, because you can destroy the monsters in all kinds of ways. And the main idea is to get creative with fighting the monsters, because you can't just kill them in forms of direct damage. You need to actually figure out ways to immobilize them to kill them. Dead Space has a whole thing to it of, like, where it's reliant on dumb jump scares and gory, stupid explosion action game. But once you actually look into the story, like, it's actually a surprisingly good Lovecraftian horror that makes, like, it gets to this effect where at first you're scared by the jump scares, and then you get over that, and then you find the story, and you find it, like, how Lovecraftian and futile everything is, and it becomes scary again. Because the background story is actually really scary, which is something that cannot be said about a lot of modern horror games, especially Resident Evil. Fucking looking at Resident Evil. Resident Evil, yeah, that... I don't know. I don't want to veer off topic into Resident Evil territory. I'll just say that Resident Evil, for how much of a fan of it I am, it does have some stupid shit. Anyways, on the PlayStation side, so on my side, I guess...
We had Mad Max and Trackmania Turbo, right?
Yes. For me, I don't have Mad Max. I have Mad Max. What's wrong with me? Why did I say that? I have Mad Max. I've played through most of it. I got to, I think, the final story mission before deciding to try and go ahead and do a completionist bit and try and finish all the free roam stuff. Which is probably a mistake because I never actually got around to finishing it. And just kind of left it. And perhaps this will convince me to go back and finish the game, because that game is a lot of fun. And it does really well at simulating the Mad Max world. Which it kind of surprised me, because they very clearly intended it from the beginning to be your very usual free roam collectathon type game. And yet they actually did a really good job of making a Mad Max game somehow in the process.
You said free roam collectathon, and I thought of Banjo-Kazooie in the Wasteland.
Yeah, the thing is, when you think about it, they're all just descendants of Banjo-Kazooie. Because what do you do in Banjo-Kazooie? You collect meaningless stuff to move to the next area, you collect some other stuff that's just a little side mission, and you collect new moves. And that's pretty much what you do in Mad Max. That's pretty much what you do in Shadow of Mordor. That's pretty much what you do in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
It's pretty much what you do in Far Cry.
In my
Banjo was the blueprint for all games to come.
It really was. It really was. And that's kind of a funny thing to think about.
Yeah, that stupid little bear creature is the foundation of what we have today.
In more ways than one.
It wasn't Altair that wrote the Assassin's Codex, it was Banjo all along.
Oh yeah, totally. You've never seen the kind of crazy shit Banjo can pull off. He's killed people with eggs, you know. I don't think Altair ever killed someone with an egg.
Would you would you count a slab, or I guess like a freaking ball of silver as an egg?
Perhaps.
No. Banjo is clearly the top dog here.
Yeah, it's not real. It's not true. Now, Ezio did kill several people with a broom, though, so I don't know how much merit there is there.
Ezio also set fire to a village, so...
Yeah, as a good hero does, he murdered several innocents that did not deserve it.
Of course.
It was just as a sacrifice to Kratos.
Okay. Oh, speaking of Kratos, the work on the new God of War game continues, the fourth God of War game, which they didn't give it a subtitle or anything to differentiate it from the original God of War game, so I call it God of 4. So...
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. How else are you supposed to differentiate it? You can call it stupid, but there's no other way to differentiate it from the original God of War.
God of 4, a game where Kratos splits into 4. It's a multiplayer party game where you kill people.
You joke, but that would be awesome. And personally, at the start of the year, I said I was only going to get 3 games. I said I was only going to get Red Dead Redemption 2. I said I was going to get Total War Warhammer 3, which probably is going to come out this year, might not, I don't know. And I believe I said I was going to get Spider-Man, but I'm not exactly sure. I may be getting that confused. And here I am, where you guys talked me into buying Rainbow Six, and then soon talked me into buying Far Cry 5, and now Soon's also trying to talk me into buying God of 4.
Don't do it.
I'm honestly considering it. Because have you been paying attention to God of 4's media hype?
No.
It looks like it looks like it's going to be old man Kratos. It's going to be the Logan story, but with Kratos.
Huh.
So it's going to be about Kratos being like, wow, I was a shitty person, and now my kid's growing up to be a shitty person. I need to fix this, and also probably die really sadly in the ending.
Kratos looks in the mirror. Wow, I was a shitty person, and then lifts out his adamantium skeleton.
Yeah, basically. And Johnny Cash's Hurt starts playing.
Yeah.
Did you guys see where someone actually put Johnny Cash's Hurt to play during the original trailer for God of 4, and it works perfectly?
No.
It
I haven't been
does.
following God of War.
God of 4.
Any of them. I had the second game on PS2, but it disappeared.
I don't blame you, but God of 4 actually looks pretty interesting. Now, I'll go ahead and send that link to... damn it. I need to fucking replace this keyboard, because this is the noisiest fucking keyboard on the planet. Like, fucking listen to this shit. What the fuck? I don't know if you guys can hear it, but the fucking recording definitely can.
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah,
Like every time you have to research something, you hear that noise.
yeah, oh, Jesus. But it's incredible how much Hurt fits for these trailers. And you guys can probably go ahead and watch because you're not recording. I won't. But it's hilarious, honestly. And I'm more interested in God of 4 than I have been in any other God of War game. And I don't know. I'd consider myself still rather interested in the original God of War games just because, like, I'm an old Devil May Cry fan. So I'm always open to trying more character action games. You know, the story, I have no interest in just seeing Kratos rampage and slaughter and rape and whatever. Well, I don't think he raped, but whatever. But I don't know. I'm really interested in this, and I think it's funny that they are actually doing like it was. I don't know what episode it was. Probably episode 14 or 15 that we were all talking about God of War, and Pink and I were talking, and we talked about how the big problem with Kratos, like Kratos would be a good character if they just acknowledged how evil he was. That's what we were talking about, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now they're actually doing it.
This just proves that they're watching our videos.
Yeah,
Sony
we're so
is our
popular.
biggest fan.
We
Yes,
must
Sony is our biggest fan.
we must use this power for good. We need Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3.
Yes.
Oh my,
We've been waiting so long.
I fucking wish. That would be a good game for the three of us to record and hopefully get a fourth man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Addy can find some Marvel hero that he knows of and he can play.
I mean, I know Deadpool. He exists.
Yeah,
I know Ghost Rider. He exists as well.
Ghost Rider wasn't in the second one, probably won't be in the third one. But Deadpool, yeah, Deadpool's probably going to be in all three.
I don't see why Ghost Rider wouldn't be in the third one, because he is being used. Is he doesn't have any licensing issues anymore because he's with Marvel, and they've been using him on the Shield show.
They only used him for a little bit on the Shield show, I think. Largely because, guess what? This Flaming Skull guy fucking costs a load of CGI money.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
I think it's gonna go with Lobo.
Yeah, Lobo is a DC character, dumbass.
I know, that's the joke.
Oh no, you're still a dumbass. Don't try and defend it.
No, I knew. He was in a game with Batman. How would he be Marvel?
DC and Marvel have crossed over several times before, actually.
In video games.
No. Mugen? How am I supposed to know
yeah.
you ain't talking about Mugen, huh? I'm still trying
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out audio levels here, by the way. For those who are listening to the podcast, if the volume seems a little bit weird, if it's fluctuating a bit hard, then that's why.
That'd be amusing to listen to. Just hearing the audio kind of go in waves.
This recording software that Addy set me up with is actually pretty good about making it subtle, at least from what I've noticed. I haven't noticed when I was messing around with audio levels in the last podcast. But, so, have you guys watched the trailer, or you think we're just going to wait until later?
I haven't watched it because the audio will be output from my computer, and it will probably be able to be heard from you guys.
Okay, that makes sense. It was just a stupid little goofy thing. But, yeah, God of War is something I'm interested in, and it wasn't a topic that we had planned, but we were able to progress to it. So, there's an extra topic on this slow news day.
I might actually want to look into it as well, because I think I might be getting a PS4.
Well, yeah.
For credit, but yeah. Life sucks. Okay, what's the next topic?
Alright, let's see. We've also got THQ. You wanted to talk about THQ Nordic? I don't know what we can really say about this, other than they've got a very weird corporate plan of just doing what THQ did.
Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to talk about, and the one game that we all care about, well, or at least you and I care about, I think, which is Darksiders 3.
Darksiders.
You know what? Yeah.
Darksiders is kind of a weird series for me. Darksiders 1, I played for a little bit. I didn't really enjoy it, but I'd probably have to go back and play it because I wasn't as good at Devil May Cry type games back then, and the first Darksiders was definitely a Devil May Cry type game. I never got too far in it, and the story didn't spectacularly interest me, particularly because was a very generic, shitty 2000s era protagonist of Mr. Big, muscled, and I've been framed for something I haven't done. I don't give a shit.
He's Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. No, he's not Hulk Hogan. He's not Hulk Hogan. He's not as much of a heel as Hulk Hogan, firstly. Which is saying something, considering that he is war incarnate. Darksiders 2, I got fairly far into. I beat, they have a boss. I don't know. I think we've talked about Darksiders 2 a lot before, and I think I've mentioned this before, but they had a boss that was basically a Shadow of the Colossus boss, and I beat that, and that was basically where I stopped. So, Darksiders is a series that interests me, because it is very over the top, and I always loved its art style. And I liked where Death went as a protagonist in Darksiders 2, so I'm interested to see where this chick can go in Darksiders 3. On the other hand, firstly, the Darksiders series has never been able to hold my attention for long spans of time. And I don't know if that's my fault or the game's fault. Could be my fault by all means. But the biggest mark against Darksiders 3 is the fact that this new god they went with is not God, but this new Horseman of the Apocalypse they've gone with for the third game is a totally made up one. Because for some fucking...
It isn't.
No.
Is it?
They got rid... It's supposed to be War, Death, Plague, Famine. Those are the four...
Oh, right.
And for some reason, they decided Plague and Famine weren't cool enough, which I don't know why. I guess because it was the late 2000s and they weren't try-hardy enough,
Yeah.
They weren't edgelords enough, rather. So they replaced Plague and Famine with something like Wrath and Fury. And it's like...
I think that's actually it.
Yeah.
Those are just synonyms.
Yeah, those are...
Yeah, I was about to say.
Those are synonyms for war. We've got 3 wars.
But one of them is like green, I think.
I don't know.
I don't remember Rats. I think I remember WCW one. Was that his name? The freaking Mortal Kombat guy?
Oh, what the fuck are you talking about? WCW? I've completely lost what you're talking about here. Addy's gone into a wrestling talk, and now he's going silent like he's laughing.
I am laughing, but yeah. Because there were these Mortal Kombat like looking guys in WCW, Glacier and the other one. I think his name was Brass, but I'm not sure.
I have no earthly clue what you're talking about. I know about the old Faces of Fear team, the old Faces of Fear stable that everybody hated in WCW. If you're talking about them,
I'm not sure.
which
haven't-
they were Earthquake and did they have Kamala?
I don't think they did.
Man,
I could be wrong.
oh they got the guy that everybody thinks killed Chris Benoit's wife and Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
What's his face? The Satanist guy. The guy
It's
who
been a while.
the guy who was married to Lady before Benoit was.
Kevin Sullivan.
Yes, Kevin Sullivan. I don't know if you're talking about those guys. I'd assume you're not. But WCW, much of WCW's history is a mess for me. Like, WWE is where the majority of my wrestling knowledge lies. But, yeah.
Yes, I looked up Brass just to see if that's the last one, because I seem to remember that it is, and Google just spat out freaking pictures of war, proving our point. But yeah.
So, I probably screwed up the names of those two other ones. I think Fury has got to be one of them. I'm almost 100% sure
Fury is the woman.
Yes,
Fury is the woman.
Fury is the chick that we play as in Darksiders 3. And the other one is a synonym. We know that. I just fucked up with the wrong synonym, I think. But I'm real. Firstly, that's really stupid to do that because they could have like biblical stories, and that's what they did for the first two games, was having you fight angels and demons and dealing with the fucking Book of Revelations coming about. But they're not. With this, like, they're just creating crazy, weird shit that's try-hardier, I guess. So it's like, why even bother with making it a biblical story at first in the first place, then? If you're just gonna make your own thing anyways.
So we can have a 1-against-4 boss fight against Kratos down the line.
I suppose. But what really confounds me here is the fact that they cut Plague and Famine out. And Plague and Famine, I feel like, could have had interesting concepts as fighters.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what they'd be able to...
Could have been like a Plague Doctor. Could have been.
Plague could have... Plague could have absolutely been really interesting in that way. Famine would be a little bit more difficult. I don't know how you'd be able to starve your opponent to death, but, you could try. Actually, it would be kind of cool for him to have spells that cause people to wither away. That'd be a neat effect to see in a video game.
Yeah, but then Plague would probably do the same, well, nearly the same thing, wouldn't he?
Not necessarily. I mean, obviously stuff like cancer would cause you to wither away, but cancer isn't a plague. Cancer is
Well, yeah. Yeah.
But something like leprosy, I don't know. Leprosy just make their arms fall off or something.
-5 to attack.
Yeah, just about. That could probably be Plague's main thing, is using a lot of debuffs and a lot of damage over time attacks. That could be his thing. And I mean, he doesn't even have to have that, because the thing with Darksiders 2 and Darksiders 1 was that each of them got to carry the weapons of the other Horsemen of the Apocalypse. War got Death's Scythe, and I think he got someone's gun. I don't know if it was Fury or the other guy.
It was the other guy, I think, because Fury uses a whip. Maybe it's a whip sword, but I think it's just a whip.
Why do they always got to give the chick a whip? I never understood that.
I don't know. I think it's a BDSM thing.
I was about to say, is it a BDSM thing? Because there are some characters like Ivy and Soul Calibur that's absolutely a BDSM thing. So, Catwoman, it's a BDSM thing too. Well, Catwoman, it didn't start off as a BDSM thing. It started off as a cat of nine tails pun. But she doesn't use a cat of nine tails anymore. She just uses a regular whip. So now it's a BDSM thing. Which implies strange things about Bruce. But, I don't know. I'm interested in seeing where Darksiders 3 goes. I say this with every time we talk about a new game. Every time we talk about the potential for new games, we end the talk with me saying, well, I'm interested to see where this goes, but I'm cynical. And every time. Every time. You can go back in the recordings. That is a verbal tick of mine that I need to deal with. Outside of Darksiders, THQ Nordic is going to be introducing some stuff that we don't give a shit about. Like, they're going to be going back and doing Nickelodeon games, I think. Which, that's...
Yeah, they're also doing Red Faction Guerrilla, I think, again.
Oh, Red Faction Guerrilla is a good game. I'd say it's mostly a good game. I didn't actually bother to care too much about playing through the main story, because the fun of that game is just going through and wrecking shit with your car and blowing shit up and being stupid.
They also have this game that I sent you.
Oh, I don't care.
Basically what it does.
Yeah, I can already tell from the front graphics that's going to be a generic-ass game. I don't know.
It's an open world RPG where the fighting system is like timing based or something.
I don't know. I don't care.
It's weird.
I've never heard of it, which is a good sign, meaning that I don't care. But yeah, the main thing all of us had with THQ was obviously the WWE games, which are now in the hands of 2K, unfortunately. So This is mostly irrelevant to us outside of the possibility of Darksiders 3 maybe being an interesting game.
Yeah. Well then.
Well, I think I've done a lot this past week, so I've got a lot to talk about in terms of that. Other than that, we may be going for a shorter podcast this week, which would probably be a good thing because, well, firstly, it makes editing easier and exporting way easier. And also, it's way easier on the audience to have something smaller to consume. So that may be better for us. But should I go up first for what I've done this week? Because I think one of the things is both of the things are definitely going to lead into talks with Pink.
Yeah, you go first because I already know your opinion on some of them, and that would impact mine.
Okay, Far Cry 5. I've been playing it quite a bit this past week, and Pink, you have as well, correct?
Indeed.
Okay, so I've been having a lot of problems with the game. Now, admittedly, I'm not what I'd consider a particularly big Far Cry fan. I picked up Far Cry 3 on sale on PC about, I don't know, a year ago? May have been half a year ago. And I raided an outpost, I did the first story mission or so, and I was like, this is cool, I'll come back later. Because you know what fucking sucks about playing Far Cry on PC? Ubisoft. Fucking Ubisoft with their damn thing where you gotta sign up for an account and do all this bullshit and set it up, and when you launch the game out of Steam, you gotta launch it all. When you launch it in Steam, you aren't launching Far Cry, you're launching Ubisoft's launcher. You have to go into Ubisoft's launcher and then you launch Far Cry from there. And it's some dumb, pointless bullshit that isn't fun. So, I mean, I'll probably get around to playing Far Cry 3 at some point. I'll probably record it as part of a Let's Play. To plug my channel. But, yeah, Far Cry 4 I play way back when the PS4 was new, when Far Cry 4 came out in 2014, I want to say. I picked up Far Cry 4 because it was pretty much the only thing on PS4 at that time. I had some fun with it.
You had that can kill zone.
Yeah, I didn't even bother with those. I think the only game, when I first picked up the PS4, I want to say I picked up the PS4 in early 2014, like January. I think I used a lot of Christmas money to do it. And at that time, the only things I played on there were UFC, which I rented, and that game was some hot garbage because you could just cheese your way through everything. All I had to do was invest a lot of points into punching, and every round, I'd walk to my opponent and I'd just go apeshit. I'd just mash right hook, left hook, right hook, left hook, right hook, and the guy would go down within 5 seconds every time.
That's what I did as well. I went to the boxer corrector.
Yeah.
just so I can build him to have punches that would kill a freaking ox.
Yeah. That game is very awkward because it tries to build a realistic system. Like, it's a fighting game that uses the Grand Theft Auto Havoc system, you know? Or not Havoc, Oh, what's that system that Rockstar uses with its games to make the ragdolls behave realistically?
I think it is Havoc.
It's not Havoc, because Havoc is the physics system that every game uses, like Call of Duty or Doom or whatever would use Havoc as the physics engine. It's something else.
Ah, yeah.
I can't immediately recall the name, but yeah, it uses a system like that, which causes a multitude of hilarious glitches, which, I fucking love to see. But it creates this issue where, since it's a fighting game, fighting games need to be very rigid and have efficient systems to ensure that things can be fair, and it'll always just be the fight, and it won't be stupid bullshit messing with the game. If an Injustice or Street Fighter, in the middle of an Injustice or Street Fighter tournament with like hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, midway through, Ryu or Superman's ragdoll decide to freak the fuck out and he flips up off the screen, then it'd be some bullshit. But I guess UFC isn't trying to be a serious fighting game. I guess it's trying to be a simulator. So, I guess that's their choice to make. But what I was getting around to saying with the game was roughly just because of that system it has, also because it tries to register every hit as a realistic hit, even if you're blocking or dodging or ducking or whatever. As long as my punch connects with somewhere on your body, you're dead. And that shouldn't work that way. There should be defensive strategies of dodging and blocking. But whatever. The Euphoria engine is the engine that Red Dead Redemption and GTA and all of those use for their ragdoll system. I fucking love that system, because sometimes your character gets hit by a car or hit by a runaway horse, and then he just drunkenly walks for like several feet without your control. Just stumbles. And it's the fucking best every time it happens. Especially if you have a gun out, because the way the system in that game works, anytime that you pull the right trigger or click on the left mouse on PC, I guess, if you have your gun out, even when you're in ragdoll form, even when you're flying all over the screen, he'll fire the gun. And I always found that hilarious, of your guy just going apeshit in ragdoll form, firing an SMG into the air. But
look out, birds.
Yeah. And the only other game I had to play at the beginning of the PS4's release was Lego Marvel. A Lego game. When you're playing a Lego game, that's when you're fucking stretching for content. So Far Cry 4 was a blessing at the time. I didn't particularly enjoy it. I enjoyed it for what Far Cry is, but I've never found a whole lot of merit to what Far Cry does, because it gives you so much freedom, but at the same time, like, maybe it's just me, but it never felt like Far Cry's a good shooter. The shooting controls don't feel great. It feels sluggish. The shooting always has. So you have to rely on auto-aim snapping to, like, quick scope? What? What's wrong with my tongue? Quick scope enemies. And another problem I've always encountered with Far Cry that is still true in Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 5 is it's impossible to tell where you're getting shot from. And
yes, I absolutely agree there.
Yeah, and because it's a free roam game, there's nothing stopping your enemies from getting confused about the mapping, walking all the way around the other side of the map, and then coming in through the back door. Which, I mean, by all means, that would be an intelligent flanking strategy, but the AI isn't smart enough to do that. You know that the AI isn't smart enough to flank you. The AI is just stupid enough to get the front door and back door confused. So, Far Cry is a series that's there for me. I played Far Cry 4 because I was desperate. I'll play Far Cry 3 because it's supposed to be the best one. And Far Cry 3 definitely... Far Cry 3, it has a more interesting setting to me than Far Cry 4, but it hasn't gone weird like Far Cry 5 has. Getting to Far Cry 5, and I feel like Pink's going to disagree with me on a lot of this stuff, I'm not a big fan of Far Cry 5. I feel like a lot of the changes they made were not good ones. For instance, getting rid of the heal button is a fucking killer.
The what button? Oh yeah,
I don't believe you've played Far Cry 3 or Far Cry 4. Am I correct on that?
yeah,
Okay, so you know how medkits work in this game?
yeah.
There used to not be a limited amount of them. It used to be that if you held Y while you were at anything less than full health, your character would heal. That was the way the system worked. And now they've made it where you've got a limited supply of those. In the old game, there were a separate thing, heal syringes, and their thing was that when you did them, they didn't take time. It would pop immediately, and it would immediately heal you to full health. It wouldn't take time at all. And now what we used to get for completely free that took time, now is what we're expected to see as the best possible solution. Which really fucks with the balance, because Far Cry is very much a game where you can get shot in the toe and die. So every inch of health is necessary. And it screws up the balance that now you've only got a limited supply of heals that you can do, that it takes time to do it, that it takes time for it to actually take effect. So you can get hit with 1,000 bullets, go to heal, and the game will, you'll immediately get shredded anyways, so it doesn't matter whether or not you use the med kits anyways. It's pointless. Because you've got a limited supply of them, but if you use them, they're just going to shred you anyways. It's better to just sit and cover for about 10 fucking years, because this game is very stingy about its health regen, so that you'll get restored. And I feel like this game, I don't know if it's because of the microtransaction system or if it's because of Dark Souls' influence on the industry, this game is deliberately much, much harder than Far Cry 3 or 4 ever were. The enemies are even tougher than ever. I have seen several occasions where Soon would throw a grenade at a guy. He would take the full blunt, point-blank force of the grenade, launch 10 feet into the air, land straight on his neck, get back up. Soon would throw another grenade. He would take the full point-blank force, launch 20 feet in the air, land on his neck, get back up, and then I'd have to shoot him in the head.
And then he'd blow up next to you.
Yeah. I've had a few occasions, where the body's fucking detonated after I killed him for no reason. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I'm probably misremembering things. That's probably not true. I don't know.
There are some enemies that will detonate because they've got like flamethrowers on their backs. So if you shoot them in the back, they'll just explode.
Yeah, and then there's probably a few times where I've killed guys while they were getting ready to while they were cooking grenades, so they never actually had the chance to throw them. And the aiming isn't good. Never has been with Far Cry. The stealth is there. I enjoy stealth in video games. I've never liked first-person stealth. I've always been a Metal Gear person when it comes to stealth. I've always been an Assassin's Creed person when it comes to stealth. Third person is an absolute necessity so that you can have your bearings, so you can know where to go, so you can get a good read of the enemy locations. And Far Cry, it's a first-person game. You're not going to get that. And for it being a first-person game, in a free roam game, I don't like first-person in a free roam setting like this, where you can be attacked from any angle at any time, because you need to have constant awareness of your surroundings, and a first-person game, it makes it much more difficult to have awareness of your surroundings.
Yep.
The microtransaction system is hot garbage, because it costs $1,000 to buy even like the lowest leveled equipment, and you're going to get $1,000 very rarely. And everything costs money. Cars, boats, planes, helicopters, guns, gun modifications, clothes, ammo, supplies. All that stuff costs money. And they have this microtransaction system in where you can get a lot of the better stuff with real world money. Which I get people defending that as saying it's the same as cheat codes, but now you have to pay money. But I'm reminded of the fact that cheat codes used to be free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the difficulty that was introduced in Far Cry 5 is partly because they want you to buy the high-level equipment so you can use it to cheese through the game. And perhaps that's just me, and Soon insists that it's not that way. Soon is a much better gamer than I am. And I don't think it ever occurs to Soon that he's generally better at gaming than most people are. For the common man, it is downright unfeasible at times to get past certain parts. At least not without cheesing, or without paying real money. The loading screens, as I've mentioned, are terrible. Yeah. Every time you fuck up, every time you die, every time you lose a race, every time you have to transition into a cutscene, every time you have to do a boss fight, every time you have to start the game up, loading screen. The loading screens take a full minute. The loading screen, it would be fine if you got to see something interesting or do something interesting during the loading screen, like, the old Dragon Ball games, how they always had cool mini games when you load the game, right? Yeah. That isn't this. You get a quote from one of the villains. Here's the thing. All of the quotes are meaningless. All of the quotes are pretentious. This is a game that very clearly recognized how iconic of a character Voss Montenegro was from Far Cry 3, and is just trying to throw shit at the wall, see what sticks, and try and make a new Voss. So every loading screen is like, hey, here's a quote from this villain. Go make it into a meme on the internet. And it pisses me off.
And it isn't even a villain from the game. It's like a quote from the Joker from like the 50th issue of Batman.
I wish they're mostly just random Bible quotes. It's just the fucking leader of the group saying, "And I saw a pale white horse," or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's a Bible quote. That's not your guy's quote. Your writer, I'm sure, is very proud of himself for having seen a bit of the Bible and taken it. But that's not really... Quoting the Bible is not something to really be proud about from a writing perspective, because guess what? Everyone's fucking read the Bible. Everyone fucking knows about the Bible. Everyone I think I get my point across there. The villains are pretentious, the villains are annoying, the villains are meaningless. The gameplay isn't good. At least to me, it's overly difficult. The aiming controls are sluggish. I don't like the weapon selection particularly either. And of course they run into the old Far Cry issue of they give you a flamethrower. Far Cry has always taken pride in its fire system, in that fire spreads, and nearly anything can catch fire, right? First thing, right. Not everything catches fire. Most of the buildings in this game at this point will not catch fire. And it's very random. Because a lot of random friendly buildings, those will catch fire. But enemy buildings, they won't catch fire. Because guess what? Fire is an all or nothing system. Fire either does nothing and is no help in a fight, or you can light the enemy building on fire and kill all of them for free. And I guess they recognized that. They recognized that was too easy, so they made most of the fucking enemy buildings fireproof. For no reason, even though they're built out of fucking plywood. And of course, there's the old Far Cry thing of taking a fire weapon is pointless anyways because grass burns very well in the Far Cry series. So that means you are going to just light yourself on fire. Guaranteed. Let's see. The story doesn't interest me. The game is fucking buggy as hell. When Suna and I play co-op, we do not go 10 minutes without a bug. Somebody is floating, a gun is floating, a texture doesn't load in, a texture loads in improperly and looks like a fucking swamp fucking water mess. The character, and it's hilarious with my character because I'm playing as a chick. I'm playing as basically Maggie from The Walking Dead at this point. And every time she dies, she has no texture on the back of her head. So when she dies, her ragdoll causes her head to dip forwards, and you can see underneath her hair and see that she has no texture on the back of her head. And there's a hilarious bug. I don't know if you've played co-op yet, Pink?
I have not.
Okay, if your co-op partner picks up a body, throw a grenade at him. Because he will be completely invulnerable to the grenade. It will not affect him at all. The body will be affected, the body will be destroyed, and your co-op partner will still be left trying to carry a non-existent body, which, since they're trying to carry it over one shoulder with using the one arm to keep the body in place, they're left in a bicep flex pose. And you can play through the entire game like that.
And then while they flex, you play real American as you freaking set fire to people.
You can't tell me that the sheriff in this game isn't Hulk Hogan. He is, legitimately. I don't wanna have to search for the image because my keyboard is fucking loud as hell. But if you guys can find a picture of that sheriff,
What's his name?
You can probably just search Far Cry 5 Sheriff. He is just Hulk Hogan. It's incredible. So, I mean, I haven't enjoyed Far Cry 5. It's got a lot of goofy, fun shit, but a lot of the goofy, fun shit is still stuff I could find in Saints Row or GTA, and I'd find Saints Row or GTA to be much better games overall. With the exception of Saints Row 4. With the complete exceptions of Saints Row 4 and Gat Out of Hell, because I fucking hate the superhero nonsense that Saints Row is doing now. And also, I've not played Agents of Mayhem, but I hear it's garbage, so presumably exclude that as well.
Wasn't that like the not Saints Row from THQ, but whoever picked that license up?
It is the new. It's supposed to be the new entry in the Saints Row series. Because the thing is, I don't know if you played Saints Row 4. Saints Row 4 blew up the Earth. They literally cannot go back to Earth in the Saints Row series. So Gat Out of Hell is pretty much the end of the Saints Row series, and Agents of Mayhem is supposed to be a multiversal reboot. Like, legitimately, it's supposed to be the same. It's the same universe, but it's like an alternate timeline, where what if things had gone differently? So several of the characters return, like including Johnny Gat, I think. But now they've got, different code names and different personalities, different motivations. So that's what they decided to do. Probably pretty smart on their part, because like I said, Saints Row 4 and Gat Out of Hell really screwed the pooch. Both gameplay-wise and plot-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Agents of Mayhem, I hear it's not great. But a lot of people shit on it, largely because people really like Saints Row 4 and Gat Out of Hell, because, let me tell you, what do people love? Lowbrow comedy. You know what Saints Row 4 and Gat Out of Hell had a lot of? Lowbrow comedy. You know what people love? Referential humor. Oh, it's hilarious because it referenced some movie I like. And you know what Saints Row 4 and Gat Out of Hell have a lot of? Referential humor.
Is this Far Cry 5 sheriff called White Horse?
Yes.
Okay,
He is just Hulk Hogan, isn't he?
he doesn't look like Hulk Hogan that much to me. It might just be the glasses and the mustache, though.
He's got the mustache, he's got the fucking hair curtain on the back of his head. The only thing he's missing is the hot dog skin.
I'd need to see Hulk with glasses.
Hulk Hogan seems like the kind of guy that if any pictures showed up of him wearing glasses, he'd kill the publication. He seems like the kind of guy with a fragile enough masculinity that he'd be like, I don't want to be seen with glasses. I'm no coward. So, I doubt you're going to have a rough time finding pictures of that. He is an old-ass dude, so he presumably needs glasses, but you'd never catch him acknowledging it. But, let's see. What was I talking about?
Saints Row 4.
Right. Yeah, Saints Row is shit. I hate it. I love Saints Row 3. I hate Saints Row 4. I should probably go back and play Saints Row 2. Anyways, Pink, what did you feel about Far Cry 5?
Okay. I cannot speak from experience with Far Cry 3 and 4 because I never played those. For me, I've enjoyed Far Cry 5. I agree that the aiming is not good. So I'm typically a stealth player anyway, but I've been trying to do more stealth because it gives me more time to aim and plot what I'm doing. One of my big problems with it is that it's, they market the open world and whatnot, and that anything can happen. And you cannot drive for more than 2 minutes without coming across what are they called? Peggies? The cultists in their vehicles. So you get out of your vehicle, shoot them, and you go back to start driving again, and another cult van rolls up. So you're basically sitting in the road for 10 minutes at a time, just killing cultists, trying to move on with your life, but you can't really go anywhere.
You said 2 minutes. I would not give it 2 minutes.
That's just so you can level up all of your Pokemon for the Elite Four.
I suppose. I swear to God, Addy. I'd say it's 30 seconds. At best.
At best.
At best, yeah. Except when you want one of them to show up so you can steal their vehicle. Then they all fuck off.
Mm-hmm. Like, I've wandered plenty of barren roads waiting for a vehicle to roll up.
I mean, I get why they did it. Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4 had much lower spawns of enemies. Far Cry 5, I get why they did it because it is Montana. And it is actually in the United States this time, so I guess vehicles would be more common and people would be more common. Even though I think Montana is actually supposed to be the lowest populated state in America.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on population or population density, so I don't know how realistic it is. To me, it seems kind of realistic. I thought it was always a goofy thing in Far Cry 3 or Far Cry 4. You'd get like one car every 5 minutes, because it seems like there'd be more cars on the road. But by all means, I could be wrong in every regard. It just seems like a thing to me in every video game outside of GTA, that they're a little too sparsely populated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really fucking glaring. Not to turn the subject again, but like just to provide a little example, like it's always glaring to me in Elder Scrolls, because Elder Scrolls is this big thriving world, and there's probably about 6 people to a town.
Yep.
And you'll encounter.
I've only played Skyrim, but yeah, I agree 100%. It's like supposed to be this big populated area, but there's maybe a shopkeeper in a town, the innkeeper, and maybe 3 NPCs.
Yep. Oh, and the Jarl, I guess, and his asshole crew. And when you walk from town to town, when you walk, 30 miles, you're gonna run into one monk. Or the 2 red guards.
Maybe.
Or the 2 red guards. They're like, hey, have you seen this chick? And then you tell them to fuck off.
Yeah.
But Far Cry 5, I don't know. I obviously don't like it quite heavily. I'm going to start playing it solo, because as Soon's been stating on the forum, I think that co-op it may actually be way worse than single player.
Possibly, yeah.
They seem to increase the difficulty a lot, but also this is one of those games where they teleport you to wherever your teammate is if you get too far. Soon plays video games like a fucking crack addict. He does not stop. He goes to an outpost, wipes it out, goes to an outpost, wipes it out. And I don't play like that.
I should play with Soon, but then I think that Soon doesn't like me. With good reason, though. But,
Addy, you play like the weirdest person. You're simultaneously impatient and also a coward. So it runs into this thing where Pink and I are like, alright, we'll go through and do this and this and this, and we set out this specific strategy. Meanwhile, you've already broken in through the back door. At the same time, when the rest of us have died, you hide in a corner. It's like, if there's any
exactly right.
If there was any other time to be like big Mr. Independent, go kick all their asses, it'd be that time.
It is because I panic. No, seriously though, it is because I freaking, what's the word I'm looking for? But basically, I rush in a lot of times in Siege, because I assume what you're talking about. In Siege, when you two are alive, I rush in a lot because if I get killed, I get killed. You can still freaking carry the game.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can't think like that, because if we all just go independently, it doesn't matter when we die. It matters if we die. And for you to be like, at the start of the game, like, oh, you guys can carry it if I die, but near the end, like, if you guys die, then it's all my fault if we lose. Like, no, it doesn't matter if you died at the beginning or you died at the end. It doesn't matter that. That doesn't matter. It's if, not when. Which, I don't know that we've got too much more to talk about with Far Cry 5 here, because the thing is, we've just, at this point, like, I don't like the game a lot. Pink's having his fun with it. Pink's enjoying it. So, I mean, that's what we can say. So, we should probably go ahead and mention the Rainbow Six Siege thing, because you wanted us to, real quick.
Yeah. One thing I want to touch on real quick with Far Cry is one of the things I really don't like is that you'll get dragged into the main missions if
Oh.
you progress too far,
Oh my god.
and I can't stand it.
I hate that. I hate that so much. And the thing is, at first, I thought it was Soon's fault. Especially because, like, we started off with Faith. Faith was the one we went after first.
Yeah, so did I.
Right, and I kept thinking it was Soon's fault, because you see the apparitions of Faith, and I kept thinking that Soon was going and touching her or something. So I started, like, impulsively shooting her so that Soon wouldn't walk into her. But that's definitely a huge problem. And we've killed Faith now, and we moved on to Eli's area, and then it fucking happened again, and I was like, why? Like, it made sense. It made sense in Faith's example because Faith's entire area is covered in that sort of drug she's got growing all over the place. So it makes sense that your character is gradually getting infected with the stuff, and so she's slowly seeping into your mind. Why do Eli and John still do it? Because Eli is just a big military guy. John is just Guantanamo Bay. Faith, it made sense. Faith, it made sense because she was the big fucking drug dealer. These two, it makes no sense. I don't get it. And it's annoying. They shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Yeah. It's like, you said I had this big open world that I could do anything I wanted, but I can't progress too far because then I'll get dragged into the main story mission, and eventually I'll have to kill one of these guys because you don't give me the choice on when I want to do what I want to do, so...
Oh, I should mention, you can't see this because you haven't played Far Cry 3 or Far Cry 4 or Far Cry 2 and Far Cry 1. Every Far Cry game has this issue where because it tries to be a realistic game, they have to use drugs to justify boss fights. And it happens in every fucking game. Every fucking game has a segment where the villain drugs you up, and then you fight them while drugged, and you see them as some big horrible monster with a big life meter, and then, you beat the boss in your drug-fueled escapades. Then, of course, the drug ends, and it reveals that you actually killed them in real life or whatever, and it wasn't a big explosive fight against a massive demon. It was just you versus a regular person. And it's this trope.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Did the first two games also have the whole burning drugs mission? Because if I remember correctly, both 3 and 4 had side missions where you had to go and burn drugs.
So does Far Cry 5. Far Cry 2 definitely would have, because Far Cry 2 was very much the trade and starter for the modern Far Cry. Far Cry 1 wouldn't have. I don't think Far Cry 1 actually had a drug trip mission, because the thing is, Far Cry 1 actually had where it turned out some crazy-ass Resident Evil experiments were being done on the island. So the boss fights were actually against big Resident Evil monsters.
Far Cry 1 was the drug trip.
Yes, very much so. Far Cry 1 had a lot of very weird issues along that lines. Like, because it was one of the first to really attempt to be a realistic simulated shooter. One of the things you could do was you could shoot through walls and actually kill the person on the other side, which was unheard of in shooters at the time. Thing is, the AI knew about that, and the AI could see you through walls because they're omniscient, like fucking God or Dr. Manhattan. So you'd have these guys sitting on the other sides of walls shooting at you and killing you through the wall. Far Cry 1 was supposed to be a hilarious mess from what I heard. I don't know how it got a sequel. But, yeah, Far Cry's got a lot of very tired... I should note, Far Cry is supposed to be set in the same universe as Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed. It's supposed to be a shared universe. So this means that the fucking freaky-ass, zombie-ass Resident Evil monsters of Far Cry 1 exist in the same universe as Resident Evil. I mean, not Resident Evil, what am I saying? Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs. So, you can sit tight knowing that. But...
So when are Ezio, Aiden Pearson, whatever the freaking Far Cry 3's protagonist's name is... No, that's the fourth one.
Jason something.
Yeah, that guy.
Oh,
When are they going to team up to wipe out Raccoon City?
Yeah, basically. I wish. That would actually make me more interested in the series. But I feel like I should really note, I think it was a very bad decision for them to go with a faceless protagonist for Far Cry 5, the character customizable protagonist. because they clearly invested a lot in the story and thought they were going to be making another new wonderful story that everybody loved, like Far Cry 3. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work if you have a voiceless, nameless protagonist.
Self-insert.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I did find that kind of weird, and I'm wondering if they didn't decide to go heavily into co-op further down the line of development.
I think they did. I think they did because someone at some point was like, hey, Assassin's Creed is running into issues because every game is too samey. We need to do something different this game so that we don't get the same criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And I think here, it definitely feels like something they just did at the last second. And it really, you can't tell a story with a character like that. You can barely do what Far Cry 3 and 4 did, because Far Cry 3 and 4 both went with Call of Duty protagonists, where they had names, they had faces, they had voices. You'd hear them grunt, but you would never hear them actually make a definitive statement. They were kind of self-insert characters with actual names, but they had some degree of character to them, which is better than can be said for a character creation system.
Yeah.
With that out of the way, we'll go ahead and talk about Rainbow Six Siege a little bit. Supposedly, they fixed the aiming, where before in the game, sometimes...
Not yet, but they're working on it.
Okay. Supposedly, they're going to fix the system right now, because right now, apparently, the system works where sometimes you miss shots for no reason. And that seems like a very strange thing to me, because Rainbow Six tries to be a realistic shooter, and that's very much like a goofy TF2 Borderlands type thing to do. But it might have been an accident on their part. It might have been a bug. But if it was a bug...
It probably was.
If it was a bug, it took them a long fucking time to fix it. The game's been out for 3 years now. But...
I think in the article that I linked, they say that they've been trying to patch the current recall system up for a while, but they weren't satisfied with that, so now they're just going to trash it and then make a new one.
Yeah, it sounds like an improvement, so I'm happy with that. I don't know how much difference it's going to make for us, because, I mean, we've stated before that our issue isn't, like, whether or not we're actually able to get... whether or not we're able to aim right, for the most part. Like, I'm not got great aim. You guys have better aim than I do. The issue we've always had as a group is just that we're too hesitant to fire because we don't want to kill teammates.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the one time that I wasn't hesitant, I blew up Pink, so...
That it's great that you've uploaded that now, because I watched that clip and it's like, what the fuck, Addy? You were looking at him directly through the wall. Like, I don't even know what you were doing there.
Quite honestly, I thought that there was like a room between us.
Okay, because I was like, what was your plan? So, Rainbow Six Siege, we're probably going to have some fun with that again soon. It's been a couple weeks now since we've recorded, but since exporting of actual video takes fucking ever, we've been having a lot of issues uploading it. But we might get in and record some new stuff sooner or later. It seems like fun.
If nothing else, then I can trash a couple of less than stellar sessions, you know.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. Because there's definitely some sessions where we spend like 5 minutes waiting outside thinking like, oh, we gotta go in through the right window, and then we go in through the window and die immediately. There's not much entertainment value to be had from those sessions.
We do need to, or I do need to edit the flashbang part though.
Yeah. That was some crazy shit there. And
yeah.
The other thing I've done this week is I have gotten around to watching the movie adaptation of Watchmen. Pink, have you ever watched it?
I've honestly never seen it. I've seen clips of it via YouTube and never actually saw the movie, though.
I'll say there were some parts I liked, some parts I didn't like. It's a far more faithful adaptation of the comic than you'd expect out of most comic book movies. Like, most of the scenes are straight from comic to movie. But there are some cases where they made changes and it's glaringly, like, why would you even make this change? Like, an executive board decided to make this change. And there are some changes I like. There are changes to the ending I really like. And that one's kind of an awkward one, because I know the ending is very controversial with some people. So, for the most part, I'd say it was good. I'd say it was a good adaptation. One of the bigger changes that pisses me off is So, if you've read Watchmen, the thing about Watchmen is it starts off with the death of the comedian, and it's not until like 3 chapters in we get to comedian's funeral, and it goes out over the ways that Night Owl, Ozymandias, and Dr. Manhattan, and I think Silk Spectre 1 all remember him, and it all shows that comedian, who before we had seen as being this great secret agent of America who's probably a great hero and a great badass, and we find out he's actually a huge piece of shit through these flashbacks. A complete sociopath who raped and murdered and just did horrible things to people constantly, all the time, just because he felt like it. And so that was supposed to be a big twist. And in the movie, they don't do that. Because the movie starts off with a montage of like showing what goes on in between the rise of the original superhero team and the rise of the second generation of superheroes. And one of the changes it makes is it actually shows comedian assassinating JFK. Which firstly makes comedian a terrible person. Secondly, that was never confirmed in the comics. It was hinted at, but it was never confirmed. And I think that kind of sucks that they take away that ambiguous, interpretable aspect of the story. I think that a lot of stories like Watchmen and Silent Hill, a lot of the fun is the stuff that we aren't told, that we aren't given a definitive answer on, so you can make your own choice regarding how you view the character. Do you think comedian was an all-around shitty person? Then you probably think comedian actually did it. If you thought comedian was a redeemable person, had some serious flaws, but was a redeemable person, then you might not believe that he actually was the one who assassinated JFK. But, so then it's not a big twist when we find out the comedian's a big piece of shit, of course. And that whole opening sequence, the whole montage going from the 40s to the 80s, some of it, like, it felt pointless. Like, one of the things that should be mentioned, there was one of the original first generation of superheroes, Silhouette, who was the other chick of the team, the black-haired, I don't know if she was French or Jewish or something, I forget. And she only gets one line in the book, where she just makes a very racist remark against Sally because she's Polish. And then we find out years later that it turned out she was a lesbian and she got killed for it. And that's all we know about that character. In the movie, part of the montage is that, the iconic picture of the World War II celebration in Times Square, and where there's the sailor kissing the random girl in the audience, right? Everyone knows that picture, right? Well, they changed it so that it was Silhouette that kissed the girl in the audience. And for me, like, that felt like an unnecessary change just to throw in our face that Silhouette was a lesbian rather than saying it in a more subtle way. I feel like they threw it in just as a goof, as part of Zack Snyder's obsession with trying to make iconic shots, even though he usually fails at it. And it felt unnecessary. The worst part about it, I think, is it should be obvious that Silhouette knew she couldn't do that in that time period.
Yeah.
Because the thing about the comics was there's supposed to be kind of a twist with Silhouette, because she was supposed to be a lesbian on the down low. Because guess what? It was the 1940s. Guess what wasn't accepted? Homosexuality. Which I don't know. That's kind of a small change to bitch about, but it felt like very out of place.
Yeah, I can understand that.
They also had they extended a lot of scenes that felt like they didn't need extended. A lot of the fight scenes got extended. Like, in the comics, comedian very much gets cheap-shotted. He gets hit unexpectedly, chucked out of the window unexpectedly. Here, it's a whole fight sequence. He and the Man in Black have a full-on, 2-minute fight sequence. And at several points, you can pretty much see the Man in Black's face, which kind of ruins the twist, if you actually pay attention. So that was a stupid choice on their part. And I feel like it also kind of messes with things like, because in the comics, it looked a lot more petty what happened to comedian. It looked more like the Man in Black had a petty grudge against the comedian, and that's why he cheap-shotted him and killed him in such a disgraceful way. And here it doesn't feel as much like that. It feels more like comedian died in a fair fight, which I think kind of hurts an aspect of the character of the Man in Black. Why am I bothering to hide it? Watchmen is a 40-year-old... nearly 40-year-old story now. I can go ahead and say it was Ozymandias that killed Comedian. Why am I hiding it? I feel like it was a major aspect of Ozymandias' character that he cheap-shotted Comedian and killed him like that in such a disgraceful way, because Comedian damaged Ozymandias' ego, you know? And also Ozymandias from the very beginning would have seen Comedian as a piece of shit, not worthy of a respectful death. For good reason, because Comedian was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And so all of the fight scenes, of course, got extended. And a lot of them it felt right. Like, the Rorschach fight scene against the police is pretty awesome. It's a very well put together fight scene. I'd say it's one of the best scenes in the entire movie. And, you know, I didn't like what they did with the Night Owl and Silk Spectre fight with the thugs in the alley because they made it bizarrely gory.
Like, yeah, that's one of the clips I've seen on YouTube, and that kind of turned me off from the whole aspect of the film adaptation because it felt unnecessary.
Yeah, and Silk Spectre snaps a guy's neck. It's like, in the comics, they didn't kill people. Night Owl and Silk Spectre are supposed to be the most easily, like, sympathetic ones because they're the ones with the strongest senses of morality out of the 6 heroes. So that was a screwy change. The sex scenes got lengthened out for some reason, or rather, well, they really lengthened the rape scene of Comedian and Sally, and the rape scene of Comedian and Sally in the book was already kind of uncomfortable. It is so hard to watch in the movie. It is beyond uncomfortable because it goes on for so long, and Comedian goes so much farther than he does in the book. Because, like, in the book, she fights back a bit, he knees her in the gut, and then Hooded Justice shows up and beats the crap out of him. In the movie, he gets all the way to the point of bending her over the table and taking his pants off. He never got anywhere near that in the book. And I don't know, I felt that was an unnecessary change. I felt they could have just done it the way the books did it. That felt more like it was trying to go for more, making it more shocking, you know?
Yeah.
And the second sex scene between Dan and Lori was unnecessarily lengthened. Which, in the books, it's just, you know, they're in the ship, they get naked, and it cuts to after the sex, where they're, you know, sitting in the shadows and Lori's smoking, right?
Yeah.
Here we get the whole thing. There is no fucking hiding it. You are just watching them have sex. Like, it's in full broad light, and it goes through the whole thing, from when they start to when they end. And there's the most stupid fucking gag I've ever seen, where when Dan finishes, like, I forget if it was Lori's hand or his ass cheek, but something hits a control on the ship, on the, you know, the weird giant owl ship that he has.
Yeah.
And it causes the flamethrower to go off as he finishes. And, like, the flamethrower is very clearly positioned on the ship to make it look like it's the ship's penis. So it's like, oh my god, are we 5 now? Is that supposed to be funny? That was unnecessarily lengthened. They lengthened out the fight scene between Ozymandias versus Dan and Rorschach for a little bit. I get why they did that. Perhaps it felt a little bit unnecessary just because it's supposed to be a squash match full on where Ozymandias whips both of their asses.
Yeah.
And it feels odd that Ozymandias would devote so much time to fighting them, considering at that point Ozymandias, he'd already won, he wouldn't care. But, I mean, I get that they had to do it to make it more of an action movie and more acceptable to modern audiences and the common mainstream audience.
Yeah.
The main awkward thing, I think, is the fact that the movie was very clearly made in 2009. And you know what was relevant in 2009? A lot of George W. Bush shit. Afghanistan is brought up frequently. The book never mentions Afghanistan. It may mention it at one point as a state of tension between America and Russia, and one of the main points of tension that will cause the nuclear war. But it doesn't go beyond that. In the movie, it's repeatedly brought up as a subject, and very clearly because Afghanistan was supposed to be a relevant thing under Bush Jr. And there's this terribly, terribly, terribly forced-in line. When Lori and Manhattan are on Mars, Manhattan's talking about how much better Mars is than Earth, and he says, "Do you really think this place could be benefited by a shopping mall or an oil pipeline?" And you know what goes off in my head? What would Dr. Manhattan give a shit about that? Because
Yeah.
shopping malls were like you guys lived 10 years ago, though Addie, you weren't an American, so you didn't get to see it as much. But 10 years ago, we thought shopping malls were the devil. Do you remember that, Pink? Every fucking person was like, "Oh, a shopping mall's the sign of America's, hubris."
Yeah.
And oil pipelines, a big environmentalism thing. And now we don't care. Shopping malls are part of life. We don't give a shit. Guess what? Shopping malls didn't cause the apocalypse. And it's so awkward. It's awkward watching this movie because Dr. Manhattan's like, "Oh, shopping malls are the sign of hubris." And what? And it shows this basic lack of understanding of Dr. Manhattan's character. Because to Dr. Manhattan, a shopping mall would just be another assembly of atoms.
Yep.
That's all he would see it as. That's a big part of his character, is that he doesn't understand the value of human life because he sees humans as just another assembly of atoms. And they also took a special note. Like, I felt there was a lot more. The dialogue was a lot more focused on comedian, Manhattan, Rorschach, and Ozymandias all thinking there is no God. And I feel like that was kind of another thing they're trying to push as relevant because W. Bush was a big era of conservative Christianity. And there's not as much focus on Dan or Laurie's philosophies so much as there is on the nihilistic philosophies of Rorschach and Ozymandias and comedian and Manhattan. And I think that was a big miss because I think a big part of the fun of Watchmen always was that it was these 6 heroes all with very fundamentally different philosophies and different views, and none of them were presented as being any more correct than the other. So there was always, you'd find yourself agreeing with one character more than the others.
Yeah.
They did try and make Rorschach more sympathetic a bit. They cut out a lot of his very homophobic lines. And I guess I get why they did that, because they felt like they needed to make Rorschach more of an acceptable hero, considering his role in the plot. But for me, I think that Rorschach... Alan Moore never intended Rorschach to be a sympathetic character, is the thing. Alan Moore had always intended Rorschach as being sort of a parody of characters like Batman and Punisher, these psychopathic superheroes who are obsessed with causing pain and getting their vengeance,
Mm-hmm.
Which, it was the 2000s. Back then, the superheroes that we loved in the 2000s were Wolverine, Punisher, Ghost Rider, Blade. All these superheroes who are all about vengeance and killing. So I guess it was a different time. But other than that, mostly everything was adapted just from the comic to the movie. And they changed the ending quite a bit. Because it isn't... in the comics, Ozymandias genetically engineers a horrible Cthulhu monster and then teleports it into New York, killing it in the process, but also killing, millions of people and decimating New York, right?
Yep.
In the movie, it turns out, you know how when we were first introduced to Dr. Manhattan in the book, he's working on some science tech bullshit, but it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, right? It's just showing that Manhattan, it's all that Manhattan cares about, right? That's all it's about. Here, Manhattan is shown to be working with Ozymandias on a plan to create infinite energy because Ozymandias insists that a source of infinite energy, he states, will be the end of the Cold War because then America and Russia will have nothing to fight over, no resources to argue over. Which I think a lot of political, political and history fans and sociologists would say that's probably bullshit. Humans are going to fight anyways. Yeah, exactly. Because that isn't Ozymandias' real plan. The thing was, Ozymandias was just using that as a lie to absorb Dr. Manhattan's energy and figure out how to replicate it. And the ending, instead of teleporting a bizarro monster of nature into New York, he uses Dr. Manhattan's energy to nuke New York, London, Moscow, and Hong Kong, killing even more people than he does in the books, and totally leveling those cities. And it changes things so that instead of aliens being blamed for the supposed assault on New York, Dr. Manhattan is blamed. And I get why they made that change, because it was always kind of a goofy thing in the books that aliens, because they didn't fit into the story at any point prior to that. Whereas making Dr. Manhattan the global threat makes more sense, I think.
Yeah.
And it also provides more of an explanation for why Dr. Manhattan decides to leave Earth and try and create new life elsewhere. Because he's obviously not accepted on Earth anymore because they think he killed millions of people. And one major change is they actually had Night Owl be present for when Manhattan kills Rorschach, which I think was a smart choice because it was always an odd thing in the comics that Night Owl never was aware of it, and you never see Night Owl sad over it, even though Rorschach was the closest thing he had to a best friend.
Yeah.
And here they go for a neat effect where after Manhattan kills Rorschach, after Ozymandias very clearly tells Manhattan to kill Rorschach, Night Owl comes in and beats the shit out of Ozymandias, and Ozymandias just lets him. Which I think is a great way of showing that Ozymandias regrets what he did, and he's questioning if he did the right thing.
Yeah.
Now, they did cut out one scene that I fucking love. They cut out the scene where Ozymandias is meditating in his place, and Manhattan comes to talk to him before leaving for, like, Mars or something. And Ozymandias asks him if he did the right thing, and Manhattan says, "Nothing ever ends." Or,
Yep.
"Did I end World War III? Nothing ever ends, Adrian." And he leaves. And that's a great line to make you question, like, did Ozymandias save the world, or is it just going to go back to the way things were eventually?
Yeah, that seems like a pretty big scene to leave out.
The thing is, they keep the line, but they change it in a terrible way. Because instead what they have is when Dan and Lori leave Sally's retirement home, and they're talking, and Dan says, "Do you think things will ever go back to the way they were?" And they leave it unclear whether he's talking about nuclear war or if he's just talking about superheroics. And that's when Lori says, "Oh, well, John always said to me, nothing ever ends, Lori." And it's like, no, just do it the old way the comics did, because that's a much better... It's a much better, much more open-ended, much more chilling end to Manhattan and Ozymandias' arcs.
Yeah. I don't think that even makes much sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't even make sense why Dan and Lori would talk about that leaving. Because Dan and Lori, what they're supposed to talk about leaving Sally's place is they're supposed to talk about, going back into superheroics, and they have the little line of Lori saying she wants a leather mask and everything. That little hint that Lori's going to start taking after her father.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd say it's better than most of the comic book movies of the 2000s, and it's more of a straight adaptation than most comic book movies altogether in terms of just directly adapting the story. But it's got some serious flaws, and I'll go ahead and say this: I don't like Carla Gugino. How do you pronounce that fucking name? Carla Gugino as Sally, I'm not a big fan of. She works for young Sally, but she doesn't work for old Sally, because the makeup artist did a good job of making her old, but she didn't bother to change her voice at all between young Sally and old Sally. And I don't know about you, but when I read Old Sally in the Watchmen book, I always imagined her voice. She had a really bad smoker voice, like the secretary from Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's perfect.
Carla Gugino doesn't bother with that. She still sounds like a woman in her 30s.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's good. I'm interested to see with the HBO adaptation of Watchmen to see if they do a better job. Particularly because you've watched Stranger Things, right?
Correct.
Okay, David Harbour, the guy who plays the sheriff, he's going to be playing comedian.
Oh, that fits pretty well.
Yeah, I like Jeffrey Dean Morgan a lot as the comedian, but
yeah.
I think David Harbour will work as a comedian pretty well as well. And they've got, I believe I heard they got Olivia Wilde as Lori, and that's probably going to work pretty well.
It's funny because she looks really similar to whoever they got to play Silk Spectre in the movie.
Malin Akerman?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Patrick Wilson well enough as Night Owl. Patrick Wilson had Dan's temperament down perfectly. The only issue is Patrick Wilson is in way too good of shape to be Night Owl.
Yeah.
Because he's this skinny guy in good shape with a toned stomach, and Night Owl is supposed to be this out of shape guy with a visible paunch.
Yep.
I think that the guy who played Dr. Manhattan did well. I think that they ran into inevitable issues where, because Dr. Manhattan has to speak with a monotone the entire time to convey that he doesn't give a shit about anything, it runs into this issue where you almost feel like the actor's doing a bad job, but he isn't. That's just Manhattan.
Yeah.
Rorschach ran into a similar issue where, like, he's speaking in a strong monotone, and again, it's because Rorschach's a sociopath who doesn't really care about anything. And also, Jackie Earl Haley's voice sounds a little bit try-hardy, but then again, so should Rorschach, because Rorschach is a try-hard.
Yeah.
And the
I think I don't remember where I got the information. I probably read it somewhere, but I believe that Rorschach, Alan Moore, had intended that he would also have a very monotone voice in a similar manner to Dr. Manhattan, because he just doesn't care. But Jackie Earle Haley did more of a gravelly Batman voice, which I felt conveyed more emotion into his speeches, I guess you could call them.
He does both. You're gonna have to give me a second here.
Yeah, no problem.
I will go ahead and say he does both. He's got the monotone going on, but at the same time he's still doing the Batman grizzled voice, which I think fits for Rorschach, because Rorschach is trying to be as scary as possible. And in Rorschach's bizarre, little disturbed, damaged, stunted mind, that's probably what he thinks of as scary. Because you gotta keep in mind about Rorschach, as bad as his childhood was, he's probably not progressed far beyond 12, you know?
Yeah.
Alright, I'm gonna step away for a little bit here. Hopefully the recording hasn't been catching too much of what's been going on around me. You guys can go ahead and talk a little bit about Rainbow Six Siege.
I will say that I was doing a solo terrorist hunt earlier, because I don't know what it is about Siege, but whenever I get on there, I can't connect to their server. Like, I don't think it's an issue on my end, because I've gone back and done Overwatch, and that always works, but with Rainbow Six, sometimes I just can't connect to it.
That's weird. I mean, it's been taking longer for me to load as well, so it might be a problem on their end, but... So yeah, the servers are a thing, they are up and running, and I played a couple of solo terrorist hunts as well. I mean, I don't know. I think I got worse in the time that I mean, I can't even kill 22 terrorists on my own with Fuse. Like I tried going with Glass because, you know, whatever, I need another character, because as much as I like Fuse and his AK, it would be nice to have somebody to fall back on that isn't Sledge.
Yeah.
And then, well, the thing with Glass is that, you know, I like playing snipers usually, but I don't like playing Glass because Rainbow Six is a really fast-paced game, and with Glass, I don't have time to actually take up aim before they shoot me. So I need to find somebody on the attacking side who I can fall back on, because defense is pretty much given with Capcan, but it's on the attack where I need to find somebody other than Fuse.
Yeah, I'm not having any problems with defense either, because I got mute down pretty all right, I would say. I'm not having too many issues placing down his stuff and blocking people off. With offense, it's kind of rolling in a couple of certain directions, because I'm not sure who I really like the most yet. I still really like IQ. I still really like Twitch. Twitch's main problem I have with her is that her drones cannot jump, and I really like the jumping feature. But, you know, it's like measuring, do I want to be able to jump inside a drone, or would I like to be able to disable stuff? I've also been trying out Glass recently. I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure how good it would be in multiplayer, because that's usually close quarters.
I mean,
It's a very cover-based game, so
yeah,
it might
but
be
then
kinda hard to get hits in.
Yeah, but then the thing with glass is that there's enough. Well, usually there's enough sniper positions where you can just stay outside and shoot people from the inside if we find them, and then they will be um busy with us. So they're shooting at us while you can take up aim and shoot. Maybe.
Gloss seems to rely on teammates more than anything because he needs his teammates to give him a hole to shoot through.
Yeah.
Like,
he can shoot the windows down himself, but that would give away his position. So it's like nobody's going to go hang out by the window once it's been shot down.
I feel like we need to try at some point like a combo of glass with thermite and or sledge, so that they can give him holes to shoot through.
Yeah.
What I've noticed about a lot of the big pro Rainbow Six players is that they tend to use the sledge or a shotgun to open up a lot of holes along the walls, and that gives them more ability to keep an eye of their surroundings, and it gives their enemies less cover to take, both on defense and offense, of course.
Yeah.
And right now, our kind of pattern, and I think the pattern of most casual players, is to just throw a reinforcer on every single wall. But I think there are some walls that we want to leave open.
Yeah. Like, when me and Addy were playing, I think, it was a bomb mission, and we didn't want to reinforce all the walls because there was a wall between both bombs, so we just busted that one down so we could actually access both of them without blocking ourselves out in case they planted a diffuser.
Yes, that is supposed to be the strategy you're supposed to use, I think, with bombs, because you get 2 bomb rooms that are separate. So if you want to have people in both rooms able to help the other, you need to open up murder holes. So on defense, like, I should probably look into getting there's an issue with defense where the impulse is to set all your defenses in one room and focus on that. And so if you're someone who goes outside to set up defenses in the surrounding area of the room, you tend to get locked out. And the thing is that taking down a barricade and putting up a new one makes a fuck ton of noise, and you don't want the enemy to hear you. So, like, I like playing Castle, but I've been hesitant about playing him in multiplayer, because every time I go outside to set up the armor barricades in the area surrounding the room, I always get locked out.
Yeah.
Wait, Capcan, I haven't been actually even reinforcing doors and windows because, well, for me it actually works better because they just see an open doorway, they walk into it, and then just blow up.
For Capcan, it absolutely makes sense. You probably want the area around your room to be barricaded, though, because for them, breaking down the barricade makes a lot of noise. And this is a game where you have awareness or you die.
Yeah. And I think the best plan with Capcan would be to, well, first of all, barricade the room that the objective is in, but then go out a ways and trap all the doors on the outside of the room. Because you don't want to have all your traps on the objective room, because they're probably going to be looking at that room the most for traps, because they'll be thinking that's where all the traps are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also worth noting, well, firstly, Capcan does not set the trap to one spot on the door, correct? Where he sets the trap on the door depends on where he is looking at and whether or not he's crouching, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
I keep telling Addy to put the trap on the bottom of the door, but he always goes for the middle.
Right.
I always go for the middle because when I
that's where
did
the
put
was at.
when I put it down crouching, a guy was trying to come in through the door and then I just shot my own trap. That's really the only reason.
Well, don't aim low. I mean,
the thing is, I can't not aim low when I'm prone. So,
I think that's a one-time problem. I don't think that's something that happens constantly. I think it makes more sense to set it low, because if you set it high, then they can just crouch or crawl underneath it.
That's a thing they can do.
Absolutely. It's a tripwire, dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why
Remember
you
that
need to...
one time where the frost killed that one guy because he was bear crawling into the room? It's like if that had been a Capcan trap placed above him, it wouldn't have been set off. But because it was a frost bear trap, it decapitated him.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you place your traps at the bottom of the door, first of all, it is called a tripwire, so that's a pretty clear indicator of what you're supposed to do with it. But that way, if it's at the bottom, there's no way they can really escape it unless they're being an idiot and jumping through the doorway. And you can't jump in this game anyway.
No, you can't, actually. That just occurred to me. If you... I don't know how low you can set the tripwire on the door. You might be able to set it... It might be a thing where if you set it a little bit too high, like it'll catch a crouching guy, but it won't catch a crawling guy. I don't know about that.
I don't think you can set it prone, so
I don't think you can set any gadget prone, but I don't know how far you'd be able to set it while crouching.
I mean it's about knee high, I think.
Okay.
Around there somewhere.
Yeah, as long as you can stop people from standing or crouching through, then that's good enough. But I think there is a thing where some of the characters, like several of the characters actually, have just one defense that they set up and leave it. Castle, Mute, Capcan are amongst them. I'm not exactly sure. Like they seem like characters that you're supposed to roam with after you set down your defenses. But some of the characters, like what I hear, that it's best to roam with the characters who have 3 speed and 1 armor. And there's like only 2 of those amongst the default starting lineup. I think
Yeah.
Pulse, Jaeger, and Bandit, I think, are the only defensive characters who have 3 speed. And with Pulse, you don't want to do that, because Pulse is a huge necessity for his team. So he should stick with them. I suppose for Bandit probably makes a lot of sense as a roamer, though. He probably does.
Yeah, because once he's electrified everything in the room that they're fortifying, there's no reason for him to be there anymore, and it absolutely makes sense for him to go off and wander.
Yeah, and he's got an SMG. He doesn't have an assault rifle or a shotgun, so he doesn't benefit as much from trying to lay down and camp an area as much as the others do. He benefits more from trying to stay fast and keep up momentum and not tie himself to an area.
Yep.
Which, of course, we're not even getting into the unlockable characters, because there's plenty of characters, there's several characters like Kavira that are very clearly just for roaming and can't do anything if she tries to hide in one place.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't know what Jaeger would even have. I guess Jaeger would fit into the same boat as Bandit, other than having perhaps a little bit better of weapons for staying in one place.
I don't think I've played Jaeger yet, so I don't even know what weapons options he has.
What I've got with him now, he's got just kind of a small little shotgun that's kind of compact. So it might be it might be a weapon designed for speedier characters. Which one thing I've found out, and I think is supposed to apply to just about all the characters, is that armor, it doesn't matter. If you have armor 1, armor 3, you're going to get shredded by gunfire no matter what. So a character,
it's really just the speed.
Yeah. So a character like Fuse, who has 3 armor and 1 speed, it's like, okay, well, his stats just suck. So...
But the gun makes up for it.
Kind of. It depends on the situation. With multiplayer, with multiplayer, they should absolutely keep an awareness of the spots that Fuse can use his Matryoshka in. They should cover roof panels first and foremost, and after that, the wall panels and the barricades, you might want to leave some of those unreinforced so that when Fuse goes to place his Matryoshka, you can just shoot him. But there's absolutely a whole thing with Rainbow Six where there's so much to experiment with and so many tactics to try, and we're just learning. We're still learning. I thought we were done learning. I thought we were just going to get better. But the more I find out about this game, the more it's like, yeah, we are still just learning. We are still just cracking the surface.
Yeah, there has to be a very steep learning curve to this, because it's like there's no way anyone could figure out what they're doing within a couple hours.
Oh, absolutely not. my number one cause of death for most of the game we've played, the early game, comes from me forgetting about the fact that barricades don't cover your feet. So as a defender, I either camp at right directly under a barricade, or as an attacker, I try to just break down a barricade with my bare hands. Either way, my feet get shredded and I die immediately.
Yep. The Achilles heel.
Literally.
My are we talking multiplayer matches or terrorist hunt? Because in multiplayer, my main cause of death is bad cover, basically. Because proning, I have a problem with proning.
Yeah, I've noticed watching the recording you uploaded that you are you've got this weird thing, at least to me, where you'll go in the general vicinity of cover, but you won't actually crouch behind it.
Because crouching is not something that I do. I forget that it exists. I mean, I know that it could save me, but I'm like, maybe if I shoot him faster than he does me, then something.
Well,
I was watching the video you put up earlier today, and at one point, Alex yells at you to crouch, and you're like, I don't know how. And he just starts shouting B, and it's like, how do you forget that you have a crouch button?
Yeah.
It's like, crouch is like the most important gadget I've ever used in any game ever. That's a first-person shooter, and you don't know how?
In a game like Rainbow Six, you live and you die by your ability to crouch.
I really need to find the one time that I used crouching correctly, though, when we nearly died defending that hostage, and then I threw an impact grenade right at the guy's face.
The impact grenades are useless for killing people. Is it just me, or is that like?
No,
I've learned,
they are bigger, more useless freaking grenade bullets.
From what I've learned, the impact grenades are there to bust holes into walls.
Yes, absolutely. Where the nitro cells are there is the actual people-killing traps. The impact grenades are there to break down walls, so that you have passageways and murder holes. So, and I mean, I absolutely would have never. That's a steep learning curve thing. That's a thing we'd never have immediately thought of when we saw the impact grenade. We would have just thought, oh, that's a grenade that's useful for immediately killing dudes and not having to cook it.
Yep.
So, I mean, we are steadily learning. But now that I'm back after dealing with that incident that we're going to have to edit out, going back to Watchmen just for a little bit, because I want to talk to Pink about this. So, the fact that Watchmen is being introduced into the DC universe, have we talked about that on the podcast yet?
No, I don't believe we have.
Okay, yeah. Would you say you're for it or against it, firstly?
Firstly, I'm against it.
Me too. Like, I feel like there's several issues here. I mean, like, they could do it well. I don't think they will do it well, but they could do it well. But even done well, it introduces a whole set of issues. Firstly being that Alan Moore for the entirety of his writing career has insisted on having comics with actual endings. And it's a big part of why Alan Moore doesn't work in comics at all anymore, and why he didn't work for either of the big two for the last 20 or 30 years of his career, was because he was very pissy about the fact that, like, Spider-Man has been doing the same shit for 50 years, for 60 years. The Spider-Man has never had a resolution to his story. And I think Alan Moore's crazy for that part, because I think it represents Alan Moore's basic lack of understanding how the comic book industry works, and where Alan Moore is more of a writer and an artist than a proper businessman. But I mean, that's what you would expect out of a writer anyways. I'm not going to dog on him too much for that. Alan Moore's got a whole host of crazy issues, and that's just one of them. But my thing is, Watchmen was designed from the very beginning to have an ending. And when you try to artificially extend a story that has a definite ending, then it becomes a mess. Because these characters were not written to go any further. These characters have nothing left to do. What arc can they possibly have planned for Night Owl past this point? Right? Because Night Owl's whole thing was he went from being this loser who was unhappy with his life, and now he's a superhero who is having the fucking time of his life, and has went from being super lonely to having, he's sleeping with Lori. And Lori, where's she gonna go? Because her whole conflict was she didn't want to be a superhero. She always felt she was forced into it. And by the end of the story, she came to the resolution that she did appreciate being a superhero and that she wanted to go back to doing it. And Rorschach, at least they've got around it by the fact that it's not Walter Kovacs under the mask anymore. So that'll be interesting to see what they do there. So, and of course I'm going to go ahead and mention the thing of, a lot of people theorizing who's this new guy under the Rorschach mask. A lot of people, for some reason, are thinking it's the kid with the newspaper, even though that kid with the newspaper got fucking vaporized.
It's Peter Parker, a clone of him.
Well, the kid's black, so...
It's the other guy, the new Spider-Man then.
Miles Morales?
Yes.
Okay. But... yeah, my own personal theory, just throwing it out there, is I think it's going to turn out to be the son of the therapist, the psychologist that was put over Rorschach while he was in prison.
Yeah.
Because I think the way it's going to turn out is that he saw his dad sort of decline into insanity as his dad started taking up Rorschach's views. And so he's going to think that because of his dad taking up Rorschach's views, Rorschach must be this great, great, admirable guy. And so he's going to try and become the new Rorschach. And
yeah.
Obviously, he has become the new Rorschach. So that's going to be interesting to see that. And it's going to be interesting for DC because it's going to give them another shot at having a sort of Punisher-esque character in their lineup. They came close with Red Hood, but Red Hood's kind of going back to just being another Robin, unfortunately. So they kind of lost that opportunity. But we may see that with Rorschach. I feel like the bigger problem with introducing Rorschach is Question is now pointless. They will never be able to do anything with Question now that Rorschach is here, because Question and Rorschach are the same character.
Yep. That's one of the big issues I had at all with introducing the Watchmen, because Question would get thrown to the wayside, like he has been for the past ever since they've owned him.
Yeah,
and I find him to be such a great, compelling character, and that they haven't ever done anything with him of any substantial noteworthiness is just crazy to me.
Yeah, it's this whole thing where Question is a very popular character when he appears. When he appears, he gets big praise, but DC never does anything with him.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'd say is indicative of a big problem with DC that they've always had, and that they're always very hesitant to go outside of the big five.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And nowadays, it's kind of the big four. Because after the horrible, horrible Ryan Reynolds movie, they don't even really do anything with Green Lantern anymore. It's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash.
Yep. They didn't even put Green Lantern in the new Justice League movie. That's how bad they screwed up.
They did, actually. It was they did, kind of. Because the thing is, it goes back to a flashback. Like, when they're explaining Darkseid and Apocalypse and the Mother Boxes, they explained that once upon a time, Darkseid tried to invade Earth, and he was fended off by the three united forces of Amazonians, Atlanteans, and men, and also a Green Lantern.
And we put that little footnote there.
Yeah. And they don't tell you it's a Green Lantern, though, so it's a really cool moment where you're seeing Amazonians and Atlanteans fighting Apocalyptian soldiers, fighting parademons, and a Green Lantern just shows up out of nowhere and wipes out like 30 of them. And it takes you a second for, like, is that Green Lantern? Oh my god, it's Green Lantern! And I think they also had a line where Steppenwolf, when he's saying we need to invade Earth again, he's saying, they have no Kryptonians, they have no Green Lanterns, it is time to strike, or some bullshit like that. So they're acknowledging Green Lantern. They're acknowledging that Green Lantern's probably going to show up sooner rather than later. He's just not... They don't have Hal Jordan or John Stewart or Kyle Rayner out yet.
Yeah.
Which we're probably going to get John Stewart now because Ryan Reynolds screwed the pooch for getting a movie Hal Jordan.
Yeah. And he's Deadpool now, so...
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no going back.
Where it mostly depends on is whether or not DC thinks they can market a black superhero, which after Black Panther, they're probably going to think they can.
Yeah.
I'm completely fine with Jon Stewart being the Green Lantern because he's the one that I was introduced to, so...
Yeah, we talked about this on the last podcast while you weren't here. Jon Stewart, like... a lot of people are naturally going to get pissy because Hal Jordan is what the kids of the 80s and 70s grew up with. But for the three of us, we all grew up with Jon Stewart being the Green Lantern. So for us, this is a good move.
Yeah. Like, I definitely see Jon Stewart being the Lantern they go with in the future because, like you were saying, basically everyone of our generation has grown up with Jon Stewart as their Green Lantern because of the cartoon series. And I don't think they're going to just cast that off for no reason. I think if they want to succeed, they should absolutely go with Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
Watch them use the squirrel instead.
That would be awesome. I would fucking love if they had the goofy ass Green Lanterns. Get Chip.
I'd certainly watch it.
Get Chip. Get the goofy dog Green Lantern that was in Brave and the Bold.
Get that freaking floating like tentacle monster.
Yeah.
That was a thing.
Yeah, totally. The only thing that's going to suck about Hal Jordan not being there is that easily the most interesting thing about Hal Jordan, at least to me, is his whole thing with Sinestro, where they kind of hate each other, but they also kind of like each other because they're old Green Lantern comrades, but also Sinestro has violated the Green Lantern code, and now he's the crazy-ass Yellow Lantern, so there's that whole thing, and I always thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's not like there aren't other Green Lantern villains to do. They've got Atrocitus and fucking the Anti-Monitor and whoever they want to use. So, I don't know. But what were we talking about? Watchmen. Yes, Watchmen in the DC universe. Lost it for a little bit there. I don't like... I simultaneously like and don't like Dr. Manhattan being the villain. Because on one hand, I think Dr. Manhattan as a villain presents an interesting possibility in terms of there is nothing in the DC universe that could come even close to Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, but another problem with that is, why is Dr. Manhattan villain at all? He should be off in another universe because he doesn't care about Earth anymore.
Well, the thing is, you remember how Dr. Manhattan said he was going to go to another universe and create his own life?
Yeah.
This is what he meant. The DC universe is what he meant.
So he created the DC universe?
Well, what he did was, he saw the Earth Prime that once existed, and he went over and he fucked with it, and he created the New 52. So the story...
Oh, no wonder he's a villain. All those terrible suits now.
Yeah, you joke, but that's the actual story they're going with. They're actually saying the New 52 was terrible. It was honestly terrible both as from a writing perspective and from a in-universe perspective, because Dr. Manhattan turned the DC universe into a bastardized version of itself. And
that's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious because DC is actually saying, we fucked up, New 52 was terrible.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing here is that we've got these opposite forces, and that Dr. Manhattan was supposed to be the big evil that turned DC into New 52, and then Wally West's fucking around with the timeline has turned it from the New 52 into Rebirth, where it's not quite the way things used to be, but it's much closer. Like, Dr. Manhattan is still exerting his influence, but it's more so back to the way things used to be.
Nifty.
Yeah, I really liked it. Which, one thing I should note about Rebirth real quick, a lot of the changes they made to go back to classic DC were supposed to be, Wally West messing with the timeline. The original Superman's back. The original white Wally West is back, whatever. One of the bigger changes that I always really liked was that Rebirth has made Amanda Waller fat again. I got sick of skinny Amanda Waller from New 52,
Yeah.
That's not a timeline change. It's supposed to just be New 52 Amanda Waller, but she got into stress eating and got fat. I don't know why, but that's hilarious to me.
But with her job, you could probably understand stress eating.
Probably, yeah. So, and of course they're doing the whole thing where Ozymandias is being kind of an ambiguous villain guy, like he kidnapped Tim Drake or something, and they're going to do something with that, and now he's got crazy technological superpowers. Because guess what? There's a huge problem with introducing Watchmen into the DC universe. Dr. Manhattan is more powerful than anything the DC universe could ever bring to bear. Everyone else is way less powerful.
Yeah. Everyone else are just standard humans.
Yeah, like Rorsch...
with the exception of maybe Ozymandias, everyone else is just basically amounts to a thug on the street that Batman would be punching out.
Yeah, Ozymandias and maybe Night Owl could hang around Batman, and Rorschach and Silk Spectre would be pushing it to kind of hang around the lower echelons of the Gotham, food chain.
Yeah. Because, Rorschach's greatest ability is that he's basically an animal, but he's had no training in any martial arts or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
His only power is intimidation.
Yeah, and Rorschach is based off of the Question. And the thing about the Question is, like, when they introduced him into the DC universe, he got into a fight with Lady Shiva. And let me tell you, random detective guy who's just really good at punching people versus the greatest martial artist in the world. Question was beaten to the point of near death. It was a hilarious squash match. Like, I think it actually was supposed to be a Rasputin situation where, like, there are 50 causes of death for Question. There were no reasonable reasons why he even survived. Yeah. Shiva beat him so badly. Which, did you know the origins of the Watchmen comic back in the day? Why Alan Moore wrote it?
If you're asking the question, I think you're asking it's because DC obtained the rights, or bought the rights to the Charlton characters.
Yes, and they asked Alan Moore to write the comic that would introduce them. Alan Moore pitched it, and they're like, this is a great story, but we can't do it because you killed off all of these new characters we wanted introduced. You did, like, the opposite of what we wanted. So they had Alan Moore change the names, and then they published it as Watchmen. And I always love that.
I think one of the first scenes or images when you're introduced to Rorschach, it's from a perspective where basically the camera is looking up into Rorschach, who's looking down, the pen in his hand, and the way it's colored and inked and whatnot, it makes it look like it's actually the Question's face, because, you don't see the ink blots because the shadow is on the center of his face. And on the sides, the ink kind of darkens, so it does look like it's a Question. And I always wondered if that was done on purpose, or if that's just a coincidence.
Yeah, the thing with Rorschach's design is there's very clearly, like, everyone else that changed major aspects of their design, Rorschach is just Question with different coloring.
Yeah.
And I including the goofy ass purple pants that he always has.
Yeah.
Dr. Manhattan, I think, was the biggest move away from what they did originally in the comics. Like, Dr. Manhattan and Captain Atom are very different characters. Though I think they have tried to move Captain Atom in his general direction. But I think that's really interesting that it is that. And also, of course, that Watchmen itself wound up influencing the way Question and Captain Atom and Peacemaker were written for several years. Because it was so popular that this comic that was originally designed to have Rorschach based off of Question, years later, Question is more or less based off of Rorschach.
Yeah.
So, there's tons of interesting possibilities to come out of, Watchmen being DC canon now. There's tons of things that can go wrong. So, we'll see,
Yep.
We are now up to 2 hours and 10 minutes on the recording, so let's go ahead and Pink, what did you do this past week?
Aside from Far Cry, I don't think I did much. I got Unity yesterday, and I played with Addy for a little while. It's probably the most I've ever played in an Assassin's Creed game.
For an hour?
Mostly, yeah, an hour. I had to get through the first act or whatever, and until I unlocked the multiplayer. Then we were screwing around with that, and at one point I jumped into a wall.
Ooh, and the void ate him.
Yeah. Eventually, once I got out of the wall, I fell into the void and died.
You literally jumped into a wall. At first I thought you were saying you, slammed into a wall. You jumped into the wall.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds like a Ubisoft thing.
Yeah.
That's the Unity thing.
I hadn't experienced any glitches up until that point. I was like, this game is actually not terrible. It's like everyone said it was a glitchy mess, and I don't understand it. And then I jumped into the wall, and I was like, "Oh, never mind. I understand it."
Yeah.
And then you looked at the frame rate.
Did they ever fix that glitch where the people's skin textures would disappear, so they'd just be floating eyeballs and teeth?
Yes, that's fixed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Though if
Now,
you
patch the
somehow
stuff you don't want them to patch, but other stuff, no.
That glitch was the fucking best. It was terrifying, but it was the best.
I mean, wouldn't you want to play a Silent Hill game setting freaking revolutionary friends?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So, I assume you guys didn't make a whole lot of progress with that.
Not really.
No,
Not in an
we
hour.
played for maybe an hour, and then we got onto the podcast.
Oh, alright. And so that's just about all you've done this past week?
I believe so. I can't think of anything anything else that was noteworthy.
Alright. Addy, what have you done in the past week?
Well, as I've said, I played the Ghost Recon Wildlands trial thing. It is most certainly a game. That I can say. It's basically, well, I played the Just Cause 2 demo on Xbox 360. Notice how I always say demo and trial because I don't ever buy games. But anyway, yeah, so I played that, and I'd say Ghost Recon Wildlands is Just Cause 2 without all the wacky stuff. So it's boring, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's about what I'd assume.
It's boring,
So, yeah.
and you were trying to get us to play it with you?
I mean, it might make it somewhat better.
You're a terrible friend!
It wouldn't be any worse than freaking Elder Scrolls Online.
That'd be a fucking low bar to pass.
But yeah, I played that. I played there's a 2-hour trial of South Park, The Fractured But Whole. I played through The Stick of Truth, so I went in kind of knowing what I'm getting into because whatever. It's been like 3 years since I played through Stick of Truth, so I don't actually remember much of the gameplay as much as I remember fighting freaking zombie Nazi fetuses. But as for what I played of Fractured But Whole, it seems like more of the same. Honestly, I was able to play as the best speedster character ever, Ezio Auditore.
Oh my god.
No, they seriously let you have Ezio's clothes. I'm not sure why.
It's because of the Ubisoft Club thing.
Yeah. So I played basically as the Flash dressed in Ezio's clothes for the 2 hours.
Always Assassin's Creed with you.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I also finished I think it's the third book in the Assassin's Creed series, the book series, Secret Crusade. It's a pretty good retelling of the game's story with some added details.
Yeah,
This
This is very much a subject like, oh, yeah, the novel series that runs alongside Assassin's Creed. Most people, you could not get them to care less.
Then what else did I do? Well, I played The Witness just today. I gave it a chance. It couldn't really grab it onto me, so, not my cup of tea. Might be better if you give it time.
I'll try it for myself, hopefully sometime sooner rather than later. I wouldn't expect to talk about it next podcast, but maybe the one after that.
And then I just been looking into, what I can spend my birthday money on. So I thought about, because there's, this whole Easter sale going on Xbox, probably on PlayStation 2, that because I shit talked Watch Dogs 2 and The Witcher 3 in the last couple of podcasts, I thought that, I'd actually buy those games and then see if I like them. If I do, then I'll just say that I was wrong.
Huh.
But then, because and with Watch Dogs 2 we can also play together. That's another thing.
Watch Dogs 2 has multiplayer?
Yes, it does, and we can also play together in the 3-hour trial. So if you want to try it out, then just download the 3-hour trial and then we can try it out.
Yeah, maybe. I'm just gonna go ahead and note this before we tie up the podcast here. Apparently, a little bit of a news thing just came out recently that Pink, how they're filming the New Mutants, Foxes.
I did not know about that.
Oh, they're making a New Mutants movie, but they're making it a horror movie.
Oh wait, yeah, I think I did hear about that.
Yeah, where it's just the kids being experimented on and shit, right?
Yeah.
Apparently, they got John Hamm to come in. They had him play Mr. Sinister. They filmed like several of the scenes. And then they decided, you know what? We don't want Mr. Sinister being the villain. And they cut all of it, and now Antonio Banderas is playing some other villain.
What?
Yeah. Now that sounds like a development mess if I've ever heard of one. Changing the entire villain after filming a huge actor playing him in several scenes. They just decide, oh, you know what? We're changing the writing. It's somebody else. Because, they must have already paid John Hamm off for to play the character. So that's just money.
Their budget just went down.
Yeah,
it's not going to be able to recuperate.
The money just went in the toilet.
Yep.
And the thing is, John Hamm is supposed to be one of the guys that they're thinking they're going to have play Batman in the DC movies from now on. They're thinking they're going to have John Hamm replace Ben Affleck as Batman now, I think, right?
I don't know.
I think I heard about that. And I also heard that they're thinking, at least just for the, how they're having Martin Scorsese make a Killing Joke movie?
Yeah.
They're thinking Joaquin Phoenix is Joker for that.
I don't know how to feel about that.
Well, I mean, anything's better than Jared Leto.
Oh, obviously.
And Joaquin Phoenix was a weird enough actor that he was like, I'll put my dick in a phone. He was like, I'll put my dick in a phone for a movie. So, he's weird enough for the role, certainly.
We're going to go through 10 different Jokers in the next 10 Batman movies until they just decide to do a CGI Heath Ledger.
We're going to go through a dozen actors for all the DC movies because it's been a giant mess since the beginning. And so actors will come in and think they can fix it, and then they can't. So it's just going to be cycling infinitely. I don't know.
And then over on the Marvel side, we're all crying because our actors are going to be leaving eventually.
Yep, Chris Evans said he's going to retire in Avengers 4. Which I think it's a red herring. I think he's going to die in an Infinity War, but I could be wrong.
It's like, I never realized how much I enjoyed Chris Evans as Captain America until I saw the Infinity War trailer and realized that he probably won't be coming back. It's like, no, I'm not ready for a world where Chris Evans isn't Captain America.
I always appreciate Chris Evans as Captain America. And I think I'll just go ahead and throw this out. Captain America, I think I've always had an issue with him in just that a lot of people tend to write him as being Mr. Big Manly Man. Mr. Big America, boy, yeah. And whenever voice actors have to voice Cap, they always voice him as being, truth and justice, And that never struck me as right, because Cap was supposed to be a diseased little nerd who went to an art college, for fuck's sakes. And Chris Evans, I think, confers more to Cap of being kind of like this guy who used to be very shelled in and awkward, who's has very certain moral beliefs that he stands for, but he's having trouble learning how to transition from being a pipsqueak to being a big tough guy who gets into fights.
Yeah.
And I always thought you also did a very good job of conveying how Cap is like the awkwardness Cap has, where he's in a time other than his own with very different standards and ideas than his own. And on one hand, he's used to the way he used to live, but on the other hand, he feels like he should be accepting of the way we live now as opposed to the way we lived back then. So it's always been kind of awkward for him, and I think Chris Evans does a good job of that.
Yeah.
I mean, as opposed to Ultimate Cap, who's just like, fuck you, I want to live in the 40s again. I don't know. I was never big on Ultimate Cap because I always feel like Cap should be one of the Cap should be one of the most unambiguously sympathetic characters in the Marvel Universe. Cap should be one of the most unambiguously sympathetic characters in the Marvel Universe, and the Ultimate Universe fucked with that by making him an asshole.
Then there's
The
also Magic Cap.
On the Ultimate side, they were terrible with everybody. I don't think they had a likable person among the entire roster.
Tony, I thought Tony...
Except, ironically, maybe Iron Man, because
Yeah.
I don't think he got all that much time in the book.
Ultimate Tony is way more likable than regular Tony. Because the thing about regular Tony, it feels like he gets into superheroics a lot because either because the government forces him to, or feels like he has to. Ultimate Tony, honestly, is a dying man who feels like he should spend his last moments helping people, and that is so much more admirable than anything main Tony has ever done. You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, Ultimate Tony's a drug addict and an alcoholic and a sex addict, but I mean, at the same time, he's dying. You know? I mean, I guess he wants to spend his last few moments enjoying those things, and he wants to spend those last few moments helping as many people as he can. And I don't know, I like Ultimate Tony way better than regular Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Or, well, I find Ultimate Tony more likable. Regular Tony is a Kratos situation where if you view him as a bad guy, then I like him as a bad guy. Because there should be some superheroes who are bad people, by all means. Because that's the thing with Watchmen is, like, Rorschach's a superhero, but that doesn't mean he's a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of what Ultimate Marvel tried to go for. Like Ant-Man. Ant-Man is a superhero. That doesn't mean he's a good person. And
He's like a whack job in the Ultimate Universe.
he's a whack job in the main universe.
Yeah, he has gone crazy on a couple occasions, but the Ultimate Universe, it basically took that one thing that he's infamous for and based his entire character around it.
I'm good with that. Because Hank Pym, other than that, isn't a character that interests me. He has never been. Ultimate Hank Pym is one of the few Ultimate situations where I'm not going to bitch, because Ultimate Hank Pym I find so much more interesting than main Hank Pym by virtue of him being a terrible, terrible person who's still a superhero because he has the government trapped under his thumb, you know? Where they need him as a scientist, you know?
Yeah.
And one of the only times Ultimate Cap was likable was when he beat the shit out of Ultimate Hank. Ultimate Hulk I've never liked because I never thought the idea of Hulk just being a violent monster was unique. If you want that for Ultimate Hulk, why not just bring in Abomination or fucking the Lizard? Why not?
Yeah.
Hulk
He's a lizard has had more intelligence than the Hulk in the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah, I don't agree with Ultimate Hulk's interpretation of Hulk as being the id. You know, just obsessed with eating and fucking constantly. I preferred the main Hulk idea of Hulk being Bruce's inner child. Because Bruce lived a very stunted childhood due to his abusive father. So he never got to be a kid, and Hulk is his inner child. And that's all Hulk wants to do. When Hulk is out in the main universe, all he wants to do is be by himself and not have to deal with humanity always pressuring him. Because Bruce has been facing pressure all his life. I'm not sure what's worse about Ultimate Hulk, his obsession with fucking or his obsession with eating people.
Why not both?
I guess that was the idea. He was supposed to be the id, so if that was what they were going for, they achieved it. Ultimate Hawkeye was fine, but like
No, he wasn't.
I was relatively fine with him. He was a little bit too much the hardcore assassin of the group, and that kind of felt in contrast to the main universe Hawkeye, who was supposed to be the kind of egotistical asshole who's usually actually pretty right in the moral arguments.
Yeah.
The thing I always appreciate about main universe Hawkeye is, like, you don't want to agree with him because he is an asshole, but he's usually right.
Yeah. Like, to me, Ultimate Hawkeye didn't feel like normal Hawkeye enough.
It felt like Punisher.
I know all the characters were changed pretty dramatically in some aspects, but first of all, it felt like at one point he was retconned because the first time they mentioned him as being on vacation with his girlfriend. Then all of a sudden, like a couple issues later, he's married with kids. Then all his family is dead. and he's still this crazy psycho assassin type person who can make anything a weapon, which is fine in Hawkeye's respect because he probably could. But at some points, it just felt like it was an entirely different character and not actually Hawkeye.
Now, hang on. Did you say that the timeline and writing of the Ultimates comics was a mess? Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, that's pretty groundbreaking news for the Ultimates line, but still.
I appreciated parts of the Ultimates. And, well, another one to bring up is Ultimate Thor. I did appreciate that everyone thought he was batshit crazy up until he proved that he actually was a god.
Yeah.
There were parts I like. There's something to learn from anything. And I mean, there's stuff to learn from Ultimate. And what I learned was I like Hank Pym being the asshole teammate on Avengers that nobody likes. That we veered pretty hard off topic there. I've even forgotten what we were talking about in the first place.
Yeah, I forgot what we were talking about as well.
That probably means it's a good place to end the recording. All right. Good evening, folks. We'll see you next week.